Why was everyone laughing so much during that speech earlier? Oh, it was just a few jokes in French and English. What did you say? You didn't understand. Never mind, let me explain. Do you remember when you said you wanted to eat a buffet? You meant to say buffet in English, but you accidentally said buffet. Buffet means abuse in French, so you ended up saying you wanted to eat abuse. I said I was looking forward to seeing a newcomer who would make such a funny mistake. I'm Natalie Smith. My husband Frederick and I have 2 adult children who live with us. I work part-time at a big company that has offices in other countries and employs people from different backgrounds, so we hear many languages at the office, not just Japanese. I used to work full-time at this company, but when my husband retired, I asked to retire early. They asked me to stay on part-time with a more flexible schedule, so I'm still working there. At first, I agreed to the part-time job, but in reality, I work almost the same number of hours as I did when I was full-time. This situation is making it hard to enjoy my husband's retirement because of my work conditions. The company assigned a new employee to handle half of my tasks, but this new person turned out to be quite difficult. Ashley's son is talented and graduated from a top university. I was hopeful that my job would become easier, but she seemed unhappy from the start. She complained, "Why do I have to do this kind of job?" It was clear she thought she was too good for this position and deserved something better. When she learned that I was her trainer, she looked even more disappointed. She seemed to think that having a part-timer as a trainer was pathetic. Well, she might just be a newcomer with a sharp attitude. There are always people like that joining the company every year. It's good to have confidence, but people with too much pride often struggle when they face the reality of their job and then leave, feeling unappreciated. I wonder if she's like that, but she's still young. I'll ignore her attitude for now. Are you a part-timer, Miss Smith? Yes, that's right. So, did you only finish high school? No. Wait, you didn't just finish middle school, did you? Ashley, why does your education matter for this job? Didn't they explain during orientation that this company doesn't allow any form of harassment, including asking about someone's education? Be careful about how you act at work. She didn't like my warning and kept a serious expression. It looks like working together might be challenging. It seems she's not happy unless she voices her thoughts. Since you're here to help me, make sure you learn the job well. She stayed quiet and looked sharp. Got it, she said. Then she sat there next to me and started talking without doing any work. She went on about how skilled she is and how good she is at English and French. It felt like she was just bragging. It's odd to see someone in their 20s trying to outshine a 65-year-old. At lunch, she invited me to eat with her. Smith's son, can you treat me to lunch? Sure, but don't you want to eat with your colleagues? No, I'm your junior. Let me treat you, so we can get to know each other better. I've met a lot of young people, but she's unlike anyone I've seen before. Okay, let's go to lunch together then. Thank you, but are you sure about paying? You're just a part-timer, after all. She was finally speaking her mind, showing she wasn't happy. She really acted like a child. Don't worry about it. By the way, is there anything you want to eat? Yes, I want to go to a buffet. Is there a good one around here? Her comment made everyone in the office freeze, but she seemed totally confident, despite her mistake. Oh, right, you don't understand English, do you, Mrs. Smith? Do you understand if I say buffet? Well, let's go then. Thanks for treating me. At this point, her annoying personality started to seem kind of cute. Since then, even though I've been helping her, she learns very slowly. She's clearly smart since she graduated from a top university, but maybe because of her pride, she doesn't pay much attention to tasks she's not interested in, and she's not aware of it. Everyone around her has to adjust and speak Japanese. She's been in many meetings but seems to struggle with understanding, causing the conversations to fall apart. Her strong confidence probably makes her unaware of how others are trying to be considerate. The numbers on this document are wrong. Fix them right away. This happens every day, and my workload just keeps increasing. If you found the mistake, why don't you fix it? Mrs. Smith, I'm not good at Japanese. Oh, it's not about Japanese, it's just numbers. Fix it quickly and submit it. I see her frowning face every day, and I'm so used to it now that I don't even notice it anymore. What a hassle. I hear you, just do it then. She glares at me. Why are you being so bossy, being just a part-timer? Bossy, be careful how you speak. Remember, you're here to get my guidance. You're really bossy. Why is a part-timer in charge of training anyway? It doesn't make sense. Despite the end of the workday approaching, she just keeps talking. Oh, you used to be a full-time employee. Did you get demoted? Oh, I wasn't demoted. I'm just now working part-time. She bursts out laughing. So, you can handle the job. Honestly, she's so narrow-minded. Everyone has their own situation. We don't have time for unnecessary talk, so fix it quickly and submit it. All I can say for now is that I'm better at this job than you. Enough talking, just get to work. Even though she's smart, her attitude makes me worried about her future. I wish they had assigned someone more talented. But I can't change the company's decision. They assigned her to help with my workload, and I'm thankful for that. It's still going to be a tough situation. I was under a lot of stress, but I handled it and faced her. She seemed to be stressed too, and to deal with it, she took some extreme actions. At this company, we have a daily routine where one employee gives a speech every morning. Since it's a multinational company, the speeches are in different languages. English is the main language, but there are also speeches in Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, and French. There's no set topic. It's more about practicing public speaking. That day, she boldly stepped up and gave her speech in French. Although her French wasn't perfect, she tried her best. The other employees watched her kindly, as she was still new. During her speech, she started introducing me as a part-time worker who had been very helpful to her. She said she wanted to learn from my excellent part-time job experience. The person who invited me looked very uncomfortable, probably thinking that since I'm now just a part-timer, I wouldn't be able to give a good speech. Please give your speech in French, senior, she said. Her face was not happy. I could see she was surprised to see a 65-year-old woman like me speaking. I started my speech, and her eyes widened in surprise. Of course, I could speak French well. I had lived in Paris for 8 years. I still had high hopes for her, even though she's new and humorous. Once joked about wanting to eat a baguette when she meant buffet. I'm glad to be her mentor. As I made my speech, I included some humor, and the employees laughed. I'm happy it went well. My speech was funny, and people laughed, but Ashley still looked confused. After the morning meeting, when we sat down, she asked me, "What did you say earlier? Why did everyone laugh so much at your speech?" "Oh, I just made a few jokes in French and English." "What did you say? I didn't understand." "Well, you mentioned wanting to eat a baguette, but you meant to say buffet in English. Baguette actually means abusa in French, so it sounded like you wanted to eat abuse." I was looking forward to working with a new person who could make such a funny mistake. Ashley turned red and looked like she was going to cry. "You asked me to give a speech. Why are you upset?" "Because this is a company setting." Which retone? I didn't think someone who's just a part-timer could speak French so well. Were you trying to make me look foolish? Well, it was to be expected. Everyone's life path is different. I have my own journey that I've followed. You don't know my background. Like that I was stationed in Paris or San Francisco. Stop judging people based on what you see right now. It could end up embarrassing you. She looked down and didn't say anything. If you join this company, it means you've worked hard up to now. Don't waste your efforts by acting this way. Are you trying to compete with me? It's annoying. You act like you know everything, but that's just showing your ignorance. Your strong competitive spirit is good, but thinking you know everything actually means you don't know much. There's so much to learn in the world. Even at 65, there's always more to study. You should keep looking for new things and growing instead of being satisfied with who you are right now. She didn't respond, and after that, she never bothered me again. When she made mistakes, she still looked a bit annoyed, but she fixed them and resubmitted her work. 2 years later, she managed all her work smoothly. I could leave the company without any worries. So, the day of my retirement came. After working here for over 40 years, I felt a deep sense of emotion. I'm looking forward to enjoying my remaining years with my husband, traveling to different countries, seeing new things, and gaining more experiences. My future looks bright. On my last day at work, after hours, the people in my department gave me a bouquet. I accepted it gratefully, and as I was leaving, Ashley called out to me, "Senpai, here." She handed me a long box with a ribbon. "Oh, for me, thank you. Can I open it now?" I unwrapped the paper and opened the box. Inside was a stylish wristwatch. "Wow, it's beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you've done. I'm sorry for the things I said before." "Oh, no. When you first started working with me, I thought you wouldn't last long, but you proved me wrong in a good way. Thank you. Does this watch have any special meaning?" "Well, since you'll be traveling with your husband, I thought it would be nice for you to mark the time together with this watch." "That's so thoughtful of you. I'm really happy. I'll start using it tomorrow." "Natalie, are you free after this?" "I'm sorry, but I have family plans tonight." "I see. My apologies. I just wanted to take you out for a buffet to celebrate your retirement sometime." "That sounds lovely. I'm looking forward to it." I left the company feeling peaceful. When I got home, my husband, children, and grandchildren had prepared a retirement party for me. There was my husband's special roast beef and a cake made by my grandchildren with my daughter's help. My life is full of happiness. I want to keep cherishing learning and everyone I interact with, including my family.
I never expected my world to unravel through a text message. But there it was, lighting up my phone screen during nap time in my kindergarten classroom, a photo of my husband Oliver. His arm wrapped around a woman I'd never seen before, both of them beaming at what looked like a backyard barbecue. My name is Harper, and until that moment, I thought I had the kind of marriage other people envied. The kind where you finish each other's sentences and share knowing looks across crowded rooms. The kind where trust isn't something you question. I stared at my phone until the screen went dark, then pressed the power button to look again. The message was from an unknown number, with only 3 words beneath the photo: "Thought you'd want to know." The quiet breathing of 20 sleeping 5-year-olds suddenly felt suffocating. I stepped into the hallway, my hands shaking as I called Oliver. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Hey, babe. Everything okay?" His voice was casual, warm, the same voice that had wished me good morning over coffee just hours ago. "I got an interesting photo today," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're in it. At what looks like a barbecue. With a woman." The pause that followed lasted exactly 2 seconds too long. "What?" "Let me see it." His tone shifted slightly, not enough to scream guilt, but enough to make my stomach clench. I forwarded the photo. Another pause. "Oh, that's nothing," he said, chuckling. "That's Sarah from the office. It was at the company picnic last month. Remember? I told you about it." He had mentioned a picnic, but he'd said he couldn't bring family because it was a team-building event. "You said spouses weren't allowed." "Right, well, it was complicated. Some people brought partners, others didn't. I didn't want to bother you since you had that parent-teacher conference that day. My conference had been on a Tuesday. Company picnics don't happen on Tuesdays." "She seems friendly," I said, watching a group of parents gather outside my classroom for pickup time. "Harper, come on. You know me better than this. We can talk about it when I get home, okay? I've got a meeting in 5. After we hung up, I went back into my classroom and started waking the kids from their naps. As I helped Tommy find his missing shoe and reminded Sophie to grab her artwork, I couldn't shake the image of Oliver's hand on that woman's waist. His fingers splayed possessively across her flowered dress. That evening, I sat at our kitchen counter, waiting. The lasagna I'd made, Oliver's favorite, had gone cold. He was 2 hours late, something about a client emergency. When he finally walked in, his tie was slightly askew, and he smelled of unfamiliar perfume. "I'm sorry about earlier," he said, dropping his briefcase by the door. "You shouldn't let anonymous messages get to you like that. Someone's probably just trying to cause trouble." I pushed my phone across the counter. "Then why is she wearing your mother's bracelet?" Oliver froze. The silver bracelet had been a family heirloom, passed down through generations of Winslow women. His mother Vivian had given it to him last Christmas, saying he should save it for the right moment. I'd assumed it was meant for me. "I can explain," he started, but I was already walking toward our bedroom. "Harper, wait." His footsteps followed me. "It's not what you think." I turned to face him, surprised by how calm I felt. "You know what's funny? I actually believe you. Because whatever I'm thinking probably isn't nearly as bad as whatever the truth is." As I closed the bedroom door between us, I heard my phone buzz with another message. This time, it wasn't a photo. Just 5 words that made my blood run cold. "There's more. Do you want proof?" I looked at the closed door, listening to Oliver's retreating footsteps, and typed back a single word: yes. Moving into Vivian's house felt like stepping into a museum where I wasn't allowed to touch anything. Every surface gleamed with generations of Winslow family history, from the antique mirrors to the crystal doorknobs that caught the morning light. Oliver had insisted we move in to help his mother, but I knew better. After the photo incident 3 weeks ago, he wanted me where he could keep an eye on me. "Those shoes need to stay in the mudroom," Vivian said as I stepped into the kitchen. She didn't look up from her crossword puzzle, but her pen stopped moving. "We don't wear outdoor footwear on the hardwood." I bit back a response about how I'd been wearing these same flats inside our apartment for months, and silently patted back to remove them. When I returned, Vivian was measuring coffee beans with the precision of a chemist. "Oliver tells me you're still teaching at that public school," she said. Her voice carrying the same tone someone might use to discuss a questionable life choice. "Such a shame. The private academy where Riley teaches has an opening in their kindergarten program." "I love my school," I replied, reaching for a coffee mug. Vivian's hand shot out, stopping me. "Not that one. It's Oliver's father's." She pulled down a plain white mug instead. "This will do." The front door opened, and Riley's voice carried through the house. "Mother? You won't believe what Oliver just told me." My stomach clenched. Riley appeared in the doorway, her designer outfit somehow unwrinkled despite the humid morning. Her smile flickered when she saw me. "Oh. Harper. Didn't know you'd be home." "It's Saturday," I said. "Right." Riley perched on a bar stool, shooting meaningful glances at her mother. "Should we discuss this later?" "Discuss what?" I asked, stirring cream into my coffee. Vivian folded her newspaper with deliberate slowness. "Oliver's been offered a promotion. Regional manager position." "That's wonderful," I said, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "In Chicago," Riley added, watching my face. "Starting next month." The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. "He hasn't mentioned anything about Chicago." "Well," Riley drawled, "he's been quite busy with the transition. Lots of meetings, planning sessions. Sarah from HR has been helping him house hunt." "Sarah. The woman from the photo." My hand tightened around the mug. "Speaking of Oliver," Vivian interjected, "he left his briefcase in my study again." "Harper, would you be a dear and take it up to your room?" I recognized the dismissal for what it was. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Riley's voice drop to a conspiratorial whisper. I paused, listening. Can't believe he's still pretending everything's normal. That girl is practically living in the Chicago apartment already. Lower your voice, Vivian hissed. We agreed to let Oliver handle this his way. I continued up the stairs, my footsteps masked by the sudden pounding in my ears. In the study, Oliver's briefcase sat next to Vivian's antique desk. My fingers hovered over the brass clasps. We'd never kept secrets before the photo, but now. The clasps clicked open easily. Inside, beneath a stack of contracts, I found a folder labeled Chicago Relocation. My hands shook as I opened it. There were apartment listings, school recommendations, and a partially completed lease agreement. The applicants' names made my vision blur: Oliver Winslow and Sarah Mitchell. Looking for something? I spun around. Oliver stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Behind him, I could see Riley hovering in the hallway, her smile sharp with satisfaction. When were you going to tell me about Chicago? I asked, holding up the folder. I was waiting for the right time. He stepped into the room, closing the door on Riley's eager face. This isn't how I wanted you to find out. Find out what, exactly? That you're moving to Chicago, or that you're moving there with Sarah? Oliver's face hardened. You've been going through my things. And you've been going through our marriage like it's something you can just pack up and leave behind. He reached for the folder, but I pulled it back. Harper, don't make this difficult. Difficult? I laughed, and the sound surprised us both. I'm just getting started. The bank statement arrived on a Tuesday, mixed in with Vivian's usual mail. I wouldn't have noticed it if I hadn't been helping her sort through the pile while she rested. Fighting off what she called just a touch of flu. The envelope was addressed to Oliver. But the account number caught my eye. It didn't match any of ours. This must be a mistake, I said, showing Vivian the statement. The address is for an apartment complex downtown. Vivian's pale face turned a shade whiter. She snatched the paper from my hands, her reading glasses sliding down her nose as she scanned the document. Where did you get this? It was in your mail. I watched her hands tremble. Vivian, what's wrong? She closed her eyes, pressing her fingers to her temples. That foolish boy. What boy? Oliver? The rent payments, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They're coming from my personal account. The room seemed to tilt sideways. You're paying for an apartment? Not intentionally. Vivian's laugh was bitter. Oliver must have accessed my accounts when he became my financial advisor last year. I trusted him to manage my investments, not. She trailed off, staring at the statement. I pulled out my phone and searched the address. The complex was upscale, with a rooftop pool and concierge service. The kind of place that would appeal to someone like Sarah from HR. I need to see it, I said. Harper, no. Vivian struggled to sit up straighter. Let me handle this. You can barely get out of bed right now. I was already grabbing my keys. Besides, I think we both know what I'm going to find there. The drive downtown felt surreal. I kept thinking about Oliver's late nights at the office, his mysterious Chicago plans. The way Riley had smirked when I found those relocation papers. Everything was connecting like a constellation of betrayal, each star burning brighter than the last. The concierge didn't even blink when I said I was Sarah Mitchell. Welcome back, Miss Mitchell. Mr. Winslow left a package for you this morning. My hands were steady as I took the key he offered. The elevator ride to the 12th floor gave me time to notice small details, the designer handbag I'd borrowed from Riley to look the part. The wedding ring I'd deliberately left at home. The apartment door opened silently. Inside, everything was modern and pristine, the opposite of Vivian's traditional home. Photos lined the entryway wall, Oliver and Sarah at various events, looking happy and in love. In one, she wore my mother-in-law's silver bracelet while they posed in front of a Christmas tree. My phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. Did you find what you were looking for? Before I could respond, I heard keys in the lock. I ducked into the bedroom just as the door opened, expecting Oliver or Sarah. Instead, Riley's voice carried through the apartment. I'm telling you, she knows something, Riley was saying to someone. That little teacher act isn't fooling anyone anymore. Keep your voice down, Oliver replied. The neighbors. Oh please, everyone here thinks this is your love nest with Sarah anyway. Nobody knows you're using it to hide mother's money. I pressed my hand against my mouth to stay quiet. It's not hiding, Oliver said. It's protecting our inheritance. You've seen how close Harper's getting to mother. If we don't secure the assets now, then your wife might actually convince mother to leave her something? Riley's laugh was sharp. God, you really know how to pick them. First Sarah helps you set up this little scheme, and now Harper's playing nurse to our mother like some kind of saint. Just stick to the plan, Oliver said. Once I'm settled in Chicago with Sarah, you can. My phone chose that moment to buzz again, loud against the bedroom's wooden dresser. The conversation in the other room stopped abruptly. Did you hear that? Riley asked. I looked around frantically, but there was only one way out. As footsteps approached the bedroom, I opened my camera app and started recording. If they wanted to catch me in the act, I'd make sure to return the favor. The doorknob turned slowly, and I squared my shoulders. Time to show the Winslows what a kindergarten teacher could really do. The video of Oliver and Riley's conversation spread across Vivian's antique desk like a confession. I'd watched it 17 times since yesterday, each viewing revealing new layers of betrayal. Vivian sat beside me, her face a mask of controlled fury as she reviewed the financial documents I'd gathered from the apartment. $2 million, she said, her voice eerily calm. Transferred in small amounts over 8 months. She looked up at me. You're being remarkably composed about all this. I was anything but composed. My hands hadn't stopped shaking since I'd escaped the apartment through the fire escape, Oliver and Riley's voices echoing behind me. But something had shifted inside me during that climb down. Fear had hardened into something else. I'm not leaving, I said. Vivian raised an eyebrow. Most women would be halfway to a divorce lawyer by now. That's exactly what they want. I closed my laptop. They're counting on me running away, making it easy for them to write me off as the bitter ex-wife while they split your money between them. The doorbell rang, and we both tensed. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of Riley's expensive car in the driveway. Let me handle this, Vivian said, but I was already heading for the door. Riley's smile faltered when she saw me. Harper? I thought you'd be at school. Parent-teacher conferences, I said, stepping aside to let her in. I took the day off. How? Convenient. She brushed past me, then stopped short at the sight of the papers spread across the desk. Mother, what's all this? Just reviewing some financial documents, Vivian said. Harper's been helping me make sense of them. Riley's laugh was sharp. Since when does a kindergarten teacher understand corporate finances? Since I started recording conversations about hiding money in secret apartments, I replied. The color drained from Riley's face. Behind her, I heard the front door open again. Oliver's footsteps in the hallway, then his voice, Riley? Your car's outside. I thought we agreed to. He appeared in the doorway, freezing when he saw us all gathered around the evidence of his betrayal. Perfect timing, Vivian said. We were just discussing your creative accounting methods. Oliver's eyes darted between us, settling on me. Harper, whatever you think you heard. Save it. I pulled out my phone. Would you like to watch the video? Or should we skip straight to the part where you explain why you're stealing from your mother? It's not stealing, Riley interjected. We're protecting our inheritance from me? I turned to face her. The gold-digging kindergarten teacher who's been taking care of your mother while you two plot to rob her blind. Enough. Vivian's voice cut through the tension. Oliver, Riley, sit down. Harper, would you make us some tea? I hesitated, but there was something in Vivian's expression that made me comply. In the kitchen, I could hear their voices rising and falling, though the words were unclear. When I returned with the tea tray, Oliver was leaning forward, his head in his hands. Harper, he said, looking up. I can explain everything. Can you explain Sarah? I set the tray down carefully. Or Chicago. Or why you gave her your mother's bracelet. The bracelet was my idea, Riley said quietly. We needed her to trust him. The casual cruelty of it struck me speechless. Vivian reached for her tea with trembling hands. I've made a decision, she announced. About my estate. Oliver straightened. Mother, you don't need to. I'm changing my will. Vivian's eyes met mine. And I'd like Harper to help me manage my affairs from now on. The silence that followed was deafening. Riley's face contorted with rage, but before she could speak, my phone buzzed with a new message. Another anonymous text. Check the safe in the apartment's master closet. The combination is Sarah's birthday, May 17, 89. What you'll find there will change everything. I looked up to find Oliver watching me, his face pale. He'd seen the message reflected in my reading glasses, and for the first time since this began, I saw real fear in his eyes. Vivian's cough echoed through the empty house at 3 a.m, sharp and wet, like breaking glass. I found her in the bathroom, clutching the sink, her nightgown spotted with blood. Don't tell Oliver, she wheezed as I helped her back to bed. He'll just send me to that awful hospital again. You need a doctor, I insisted, but she gripped my wrist with surprising strength. What I need is time. Her eyes, usually sharp with criticism, were fever-bright and desperate. There are things you need to know, Harper. Things I should have told you weeks ago. Before she could continue, my phone lit up with Oliver's name. He'd been in Chicago for 5 days, supposedly finalizing his transfer. I let it ring. He's not coming back, is he? I asked. Vivian's laugh turned into another coughing fit. Not unless he runs out of money first. She pulled a key from beneath her pillow. My private safe, in the library. Behind the portrait of his father. Everything you need to know is there. The portrait watched me as I entered the library, Oliver's father's stern face illuminated by moonlight. Behind it, the safe opened with a soft click. Inside, I found decades of documentation, bank statements, property deeds, and a manila envelope marked Sarah Mitchell, background check. My hands trembled as I opened it. Sarah Mitchell had died 15 years ago, a teenage car accident in Ohio. The woman in the photos with Oliver, the one wearing Vivian's bracelet, was using a dead girl's identity. A floorboard creaked behind me. I wondered when Mother would show you. Riley stood in the doorway, still wearing her designer work clothes despite the hour. Though I thought she'd last longer than this. What did you do to her? Me? Riley's laugh was hollow. I'm not the one who's been adjusting her medication. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Oliver wouldn't. Oliver does what needs to be done. She stepped closer, examining her manicured nails. Just like he did with Father's accident. Though that was messy, stairs are so unpredictable at that age. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the anonymous number, check the medicine cabinet. Third bottle from the left. Riley saw my expression change. Let me guess, your mysterious friend is texting again? The one who's been feeding you breadcrumbs about Oliver? Her smile turned predatory. Did you ever wonder why they care so much about exposing my brother? Because what you're doing is wrong. What we're doing is surviving. Riley moved between me and the door. The Winslow fortune belongs to real Winslows, not some kindergarten teacher playing detective. Though I have to admit, you've lasted longer than we expected. A crash from upstairs made us both jump. Vivian's voice, weak but urgent, "Harper." I tried to push past Riley, but she grabbed my arm. She's fine. Probably just knocked something over in her drug-addled state. We should talk about your options. My options? Leave now, divorce Oliver quietly, and we'll make sure you're comfortable. Stay, and... She shrugged. Well, accidents happen in this family. Another crash, followed by silence. That's your choice, Harper. Riley's grip tightened. Walk away or join the body count. I thought about Oliver's father, about Sarah Mitchell, about Vivian upstairs possibly dying while I stood here. Then I thought about my kindergarten classroom, where I taught children that bullies only win if you let them. You're right, I said softly. Accidents do happen. I swung the heavy manila envelope at her face. As she stumbled, I bolted past her, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Behind me, Riley's heels clicked on the hardwood, her threats echoing off the walls. Vivian's bedroom door was locked. Inside, I could hear labored breathing. Harper! Riley called, her voice sickly sweet. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. My phone buzzed one final time. Remember the video. Use it. And suddenly I knew exactly what to do. I pulled up my phone and started a live stream, making sure to capture Riley's approach, the locked door, everything. Hello, Internet, I said clearly. Let me tell you about the Winslow family and what really happened to Oliver's father. The live stream had reached 10,000 viewers by the time Oliver burst through the front door. My phone battery was at 12% and Vivian's breathing had grown dangerously shallow behind the locked door. Harper! Oliver's voice carried up the stairs. Turn off the stream. Now. Or what? I kept my voice steady for the camera. You'll arrange another accident? Like you did with your father? Riley's face had gone chalk white when I'd started revealing family secrets. Now she stood at the top of the stairs, blocking Oliver's approach. Brother dear, she has evidence. From the safe. Oliver's footsteps stopped. What safe? Don't play dumb, I said, angling my phone to capture his reaction. Vivian showed me everything, the real Sarah Mitchell's death certificate, your father's accident report, the doctored financial records. A wet cough from behind the door made my heart skip. I needed to get to Vivian, but I couldn't risk turning my back on either sibling. 7% battery, I announced to my viewers. If this stream cuts out, you all know why. Oliver reached the landing, his usual polished appearance disheveled. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. You killed your father for his money, then started slowly poisoning your mother when she discovered the truth. The only thing I don't get is why Sarah, the real Sarah, had to die. She didn't. A new voice joined us. A familiar one. I turned to see Jenna, my best friend, standing at the bottom of the stairs. She held up her phone, showing the anonymous number that had been feeding me information. The real Sarah Mitchell didn't die in that crash, Jenna said. She just disappeared. Didn't you, Riley? Riley's composure cracked. How did you figure it out? That you stole a dead girl's identity to help your brother embezzle millions? That you've been playing both sides? Pretending to be Oliver's mistress while helping him drain your mother's accounts? Jenna climbed the stairs slowly. I'm a private investigator, Riley. Vivian hired me 6 months ago. My phone beeped, 5%. Harper, Oliver's voice turned gentle, reasonable, the same tone he'd used to explain away the first photo. Think about what you're risking. We could have given you everything you wanted. What I wanted? I laughed, and the sound echoed through the silent house. I wanted a husband who loved me. A family I could trust. Instead, I got a murderer and his sociopath sister. A thud from Vivian's room made us all jump. She's dying in there, Riley said quietly. Are you going to let that happen while you play detective? The police are already on their way, Jenna called from below. Along with an ambulance. Your mother's doctor has been recording the gradual changes to her medication. Every prescription, every refill, every adjustment you made, it's all documented. Oliver moved faster than I expected. His hand caught my wrist, twisting until my phone clattered to the floor. But the screen stayed lit, still streaming, still recording as he pushed me against the wall. You could have had everything, he hissed. Instead, you'll leave with nothing. Just like your father did? Vivian's voice, weak but clear, came through the door. When you pushed him down these same stairs? The bedroom door swung open. Vivian stood there, pale but upright, holding an empty pill bottle in one trembling hand. Mother? Riley stepped forward. How did you survive the poison? Vivian's smile was fierce. I stopped taking the pills weeks ago, when Jenna confirmed what they contained. I needed proof, and you two provided it beautifully. She looked at me, her eyes soft. I'm sorry we had to deceive you too, Harper. But we needed their true colors on camera. My phone screen finally went dark, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. Below, police sirens wailed in the distance. Oliver's grip on my wrist tightened. If I'm going down, he whispered, you're coming with me. He yanked me toward the stairs, but I was done being a victim. I'd taught my kindergartners about standing up to bullies. Time to follow my own lesson plan. The staircase loomed behind me as Oliver's grip tightened. One push, that's all it would take. Just like his father. The irony wasn't lost on me. You really want to do this? I kept my voice steady, buying time as police sirens grew closer. In front of all those live stream viewers? The stream ended, Oliver snarled. Your phone died. Did it? Jenna's voice carried from below. Check your notifications, Oliver. I've been mirroring Harper's stream to my account since she started. We're still live. His momentary hesitation was all I needed. Years of breaking up playground fights had taught me more than just conflict resolution. I twisted sharply, using his own momentum against him. Oliver stumbled, his grip loosening. Harper, catch! Vivian's voice rang out as something small and metallic arced through the air, her silver bracelet. The one Sarah/Riley had worn in that first photo. I snatched it with my free hand. That's mine, Riley lunged forward, but Vivian blocked her path. No, it's not, Vivian said. Nothing here was ever yours. The real Sarah Mitchell's parents confirmed that last week. Riley's composure shattered. You talked to them? They're very interested in meeting the woman who stole their dead daughter's identity. Jenna was climbing the stairs now, phone steady in her hand. They're waiting at the police station. Oliver's grip suddenly released. He stumbled back, laughing, a hollow, broken sound. You don't understand. None of you understand. Father was going to destroy everything, sell the company, donate the fortune to charity. We had to stop him. By pushing him down the stairs? I clutched the bracelet tightly. By slowly poisoning your mother? By protecting our legacy. Riley's voice cracked. We're Winslow's. This fortune belongs to us. No, Vivian stepped forward, her strength returning with each word. It belongs to someone who understands what legacy really means. That's why I changed my will last month. The front door burst open downstairs. Police officers flooded in, their footsteps thundering up the stairs. You didn't, Riley whispered. I did. Vivian turned to me. Harper, that bracelet you're holding, it's more than just jewelry. The hollow band contains a micro SD card with copies of everything: bank records, medical reports, security footage from the night their father died. I've been collecting evidence for months, ever since I first suspected what they'd done. Oliver lunged at me one final time, but Jenna was faster. She caught his arm, twisting it behind his back as officers reached the landing. Oliver and Riley Winslow, Jenna's voice was professionally calm. You're under arrest for the murder of James Winslow, attempted murder of Vivian Winslow, identity theft, and financial fraud. Did I miss anything, Harper? I watched as handcuffs clicked around Oliver's wrists, my husband, the man I'd loved, now a stranger wearing a familiar face. Just one thing. The bracelet. What about it? Riley spat as officers secured her. I held it up, letting it catch the light. Your father gave this to your mother on their wedding day. It was supposed to represent trust, family, legacy. Instead, you used it to orchestrate his murder. Poetic justice, Vivian said softly, taking the bracelet from my hands. That had helped bring down the people who betrayed everything it stood for. As the police led Oliver and Riley away, I noticed something odd about Oliver's expression. Not anger or defeat, but satisfaction? Check his phone, I called to the officers. And Riley's. There's something we're missing. Jenna was already moving, her investigator's instincts kicking in. She grabbed Oliver's phone from his pocket before the officers could stop her. His last text message was still open. Everything in place. When the house burns, no evidence survives. The smell of smoke reached us just as the fire alarms began to scream. They had a backup plan, I realized. They always had a backup plan. Vivian gripped my arm. The safe. Everything's still in there. I looked at the spreading smoke, then at Jenna's still streaming phone. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about saving what they tried to burn. I'm going back, I said, and ran toward the library before anyone could stop me. 6 months after the fire, I stood in my kindergarten classroom, hanging student artwork on freshly painted walls. The morning news played quietly on my phone, Oliver and Riley Winslow sentenced in family fraud case. I didn't need to watch. I'd been there when the verdict came down. The evidence we'd saved from the burning house had sealed their fate, though not in the way anyone expected. The safe had contained more than just documents, it held a video confession from Oliver's father, recorded the night before his death. He'd known what his children were planning. The stairs weren't an accident, they were his choice. Still here after hours? Vivian appeared in my doorway, looking healthier than she had in years. The contractors finished the house renovations. It feels empty without you there. I pinned up Sophie's finger-painted family portrait. I like my apartment. It's simpler. Simple isn't always better. She moved beside me, studying the children's artwork. Have you read the letter yet? The envelope she'd given me last week sat unopened in my desk drawer. Not ready. Harper. Her voice carried the same stern tone she'd once used to criticize my shoes. You can't avoid it forever. I pulled out the envelope. The paper was expensive, heavy, classic Vivian. Inside, I found adoption papers. I don't understand. I lost my children long before that fire, Vivian said quietly. But I gained a daughter through it. The Winslow legacy doesn't need to die with Oliver's betrayal. I'm not a Winslow. No. She smiled. You're better. You're the one who saved us from ourselves. My phone buzzed, Jenna, sending her daily check-in. She'd finally admitted to being the anonymous texter, though not without justification. I knew you'd need evidence, she'd explained. But you had to find it yourself to believe it. The company board meets next week, Vivian continued. They'll need a new director of community outreach. Someone who understands both education and family values. I thought about Oliver, about how his fear of losing the family fortune had cost him his actual family. About Riley, whose desperate grab for status had earned her a different kind of identity change. About revenge, and how it tasted nothing like I'd expected. I have one condition, I said. Name it. The company's first project under new management, I want to fund teacher training programs. Real ones, not just corporate tax write-offs. Vivian's laugh echoed through the classroom. You never stop teaching, do you? Someone once told me the best revenge is living well. I picked up a crayon drawing from my desk, little Tommy's picture of his teacher helping him tie his shoes. But I think the best revenge is helping others live better. Speaking of help. Vivian hesitated. Oliver asked to see you. One last time before they transfer him. The old pain flickered, but it felt distant now, like watching storm clouds through a window. What did you tell him? That it was your choice. Just like everything else from now on. I looked around my classroom at the tiny chairs and bright posters. At the safe space I'd created where children learned about trust and consequences. Then I thought about the man who'd taught me the same lessons, albeit differently. Tell him I'm busy, I said. I have a future to build. Vivian nodded, understanding what I didn't say. Sometimes closure isn't about final conversations or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's about choosing which stories to continue and which to leave behind. As we left the classroom, I caught my reflection in the window, still the same kindergarten teacher, but standing straighter now. The silver bracelet glinted on my wrist, no longer a symbol of betrayal but of survival. Ready? Vivian asked. I locked the classroom door, thinking about tomorrow's lesson plan on forgiveness and fresh starts. I am now. The adoption papers felt warm in my pocket, like a promise. Not of revenge fulfilled, but of something better, a family rebuilt from truth rather than lies, strength rather than fear. And maybe that was the biggest plot twist of all, that sometimes the best endings aren't about getting even, but about getting free.
I stepped off the plane from Italy with a heart full of stories and a camera roll bursting with content for my travel vlog. 2 weeks of exploring hidden trattorias and ancient villages had given me exactly what I needed for my next series. My name is Avery, and until today, I thought I had finally figured out how to balance my dream job with my marriage. The first sign something was wrong came when Eric didn't answer my texts after I landed. Usually, he'd send at least a quick, welcome back, or ask when to pick me up. Instead, I got radio silence and had to grab an Uber home. No big deal, I told myself. He was probably stuck in a meeting or something. The second red flag hit me when I saw his mother's car in our driveway. Hello? I called out, dragging my suitcase through the front door. The house felt different somehow, tense, like the air before a storm. I found them sitting in our living room like they were waiting for a funeral to start. Eric perched on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped together so tight his knuckles were white. His mother Lorraine sat next to him, ramrod straight in her designer pantsuit, lips pressed into that thin line I'd grown to hate over the years. "Welcome home, dear," Lorraine said, in that syrupy voice that always meant trouble was coming. Eric wouldn't look at me. "We need to talk, Avery." My stomach dropped. I'd seen enough movies to know nothing good ever followed those words. "What's going on?" "Your lifestyle," Lorraine began, gesturing vaguely at my travel-worn appearance. "It's becoming concerning." I let out a laugh that probably sounded more nervous than I intended. "My lifestyle? You mean my job? The one that's finally taking off?" "That's exactly what we mean." Eric finally looked up, and something in his eyes made me take a step back. "This isn't sustainable, Avery. The constant traveling, the irregular income, living out of a suitcase. It's not how a marriage is supposed to work. Not how a marriage is supposed to work? I echoed, my voice rising. My channel just hit 500,000 subscribers. I'm making more now than I did in corporate marketing. Lorraine cleared her throat. Money isn't everything, dear. What about starting a family? Putting down roots? We agreed to wait on kids, I said to Eric, ignoring his mother. You said you supported this. I supported a hobby, he replied, standing up. But this has gone too far. I need stability, Avery. A real wife, not someone who's gone more than she's home. The word real hit me like a slap. I noticed then that there were papers on the coffee table. Legal papers. What is this? I asked, though I already knew. An ultimatum, Eric said quietly. Either you give up the vlog and commit to building a real life here with me, or what? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Or we end this now, before we waste any more time. I picked up the papers with trembling hands. Divorce papers already filled out with everything except my signature. You did this while I was gone? I looked between them, reality crashing down around me. You waited until I was out of the country to plan this? We knew you wouldn't be reasonable if we tried to discuss it normally, Lorraine said, as if that made it better. I stood there, still in my travel clothes, jet-lagged and shell-shocked, looking at these two people who claimed to love me, plotting to strip away everything I'd built for myself. I need time to think, I managed to say, backing toward the stairs. I can't. I need time. Don't take too long, Lorraine called after me. Eric deserves an answer. I made it to our bedroom before the tears started, but they weren't sad tears. They were angry ones. As I sat on the edge of our bed, still clutching those papers, something shifted inside me. They thought they could force me to choose? Fine, but they weren't going to like the choice I made. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages to Mia. You won't believe what just happened. Can I crash at your place tonight? Mia's spare bedroom became my sanctuary that night. I sat cross-legged on her guest bed, surrounded by takeout containers while she paced the room, her creative director energy in full force as she processed my story. So let me get this straight, she said, gesturing with a spring roll. They ambushed you with divorce papers because you're too successful? According to them, it's about stability. I stabbed at my pad thai. Eric says he wants a real wife. Oh, honey. Mia sat beside me. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Eric's face appeared on the screen. I'd been dodging his calls all evening, but something made me answer this time. Where are you? His voice was tight. Mother's worried sick. I almost laughed. Mother's worried? I'm the one who came home to an intervention. Just come home. We can talk about this rationally. Rationally? The word tasted bitter. Like how you rationally waited until I was out of the country to plan this with your mother? That's not fair. I've been trying to talk to you about this for months. No, you've been dropping hints about how my work isn't serious enough. There's a difference. Silence stretched between us. Then, I got a promotion. What? Senior partner. They announced it while you were gone. It means more responsibility, more stability. We could finally start that family mothers always. Stop. My hand tightened around the phone. Just stop. This isn't about your promotion or your mother's wants. This is about control. Don't be dramatic, Avery. I'm trying to build a future for us. No, you're trying to build the future you and your mother want. Did you even watch any of my Italy videos? More silence. Of course he hadn't. I have to go, I said. I'm working on editing my new content. See? This is exactly what I mean. You're always working on your little videos instead of. I hung up. Mia watched me carefully. You okay? I need my laptop. I was already pulling it out of my bag. Remember that amazing grandmother I met in Tuscany? The one who taught me her family's secret pasta recipe. Yeah? I'm posting that video tonight. Not next week like I planned. My fingers flew over the keyboard. With a special dedication. Avery. Mia's voice held a warning note. To all the women who were told their dreams weren't practical enough. I typed in the description. And to those who tried to clip their wings. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. The video had gone viral overnight, with comments pouring in from women sharing their own stories of being pressured to give up their passions for someone else's comfort. Then came the text from Eric. "My colleagues saw your video. Was that really necessary?" I was crafting a response when another message appeared, this one from Lorraine. "You're embarrassing this family. Eric deserves better than your childish attention-seeking." My hands shook as I typed back, "Family? You mean the one trying to force me to choose between my identity and your approval?" "We're trying to help you grow up," she replied. "One day you'll thank us." I screenshot the exchange and sent it to Mia with the caption, "Watch me grow up and away from this toxicity." Later that afternoon, I sat in my favorite coffee shop, editing my next video when Jackson, my mentor in the vlogging world, slid into the seat across from me. "Saw your Tuscany piece," he said, pushing a fresh latte toward me. "Powerful stuff. You okay?" "Getting there." I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. "Did you know they had those papers ready before I even left for Italy?" Jackson's eyebrows shot up. "That's cold." "Yeah." I took a sip of coffee. "But you know what's colder?" I just checked our joint account. Eric moved most of our savings to his personal account while I was gone too. Jesus. Jackson leaned back. "What are you going to do?" I opened my laptop, showing him the draft of my next video, a behind-the-scenes look at how I built my brand from scratch. "I'm going to remind them that they're not the only ones who know how to plan ahead." The coffee shop's window reflected my smile, and for the first time since coming home, it didn't feel forced. They wanted to play hardball? Game on. I never meant to find the emails. I'd only logged into our shared computer to download some backup footage when a notification popped up from Eric's account. Usually I'd ignore it, but the subject line caught my eye. Concerns about Avery. My hands hovered over the keyboard. This was wrong. This was invasion of privacy. This was exactly what I needed to do. The email chain between Eric and his mother went back months. Before Italy. Before the ultimatum. Before everything. "She's becoming more distant," Eric had written 3 months ago. "Every time she leaves for these trips, she comes back different. More independent. Less willing to listen to reason." Lorraine's response made my stomach turn. "That's why we need to act now, dear. Before she completely loses sight of her real responsibilities." "I've spoken with Sarah at the firm. There's still an opening in the marketing department if we can convince her to give up this internet fantasy." They'd planned it all. The job. The intervention. Everything. They'd even discussed ways to make my vlogging more difficult, accidentally deleting footage, scheduling family events during my editing time, guilt-tripping me about travel expenses despite my channel's revenue. I was still staring at the screen when my phone buzzed. "Eric, coming home tonight?" His voice was carefully neutral. "Mother's making her pot roast." "Actually," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I'm meeting with my lawyer." Silence. Then, "Lawyer." "Yes, to discuss the interesting emails I just found. The ones about sabotaging my career." "You went through my emails?" His voice rose. "That's private." "Private like plotting with your mother to destroy my business? Private like arranging a job for me without my knowledge. We were trying to help you." "Help me?" I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "By going behind my back?" "By treating me like a child who can't make her own decisions." "You're being irrational." "No, I'm being crystal clear. For the first time in our marriage, I'm seeing everything perfectly." I took a deep breath. "I'm sending you a link to my latest video. You should watch it." "Mother too." I hung up before he could respond and opened my editing software. The footage I'd been saving for next week would work perfectly for today instead. I'd filmed it in a tiny restaurant in Rome, interviewing a female chef who'd fought her entire family to follow her culinary dreams. 3 hours later, the video went live, breaking free, when family doesn't mean support. In the description, I included screenshots of select emails, carefully edited to protect private information, but clear enough to show the manipulation. My phone exploded immediately. First came Lorraine's text. "Take that down immediately or you'll regret it." Then Eric, "You've gone too far." Mother's crying. Finally, a message from an unknown number. "Saw your video. I'm a producer with Travel Network. Let's talk." I screenshotted the producer's message and sent it to both Eric and Lorraine with one line. Funny how my internet fantasy keeps proving you wrong. Mia called moments later. Girl, you're trending. Have you seen the comments? I hadn't. I opened the video and felt tears well up as I read them. Hundreds of women sharing similar stories of family members trying to clip their wings, of partners who couldn't handle their success, of mothers-in-law who saw independence as a threat. I never wanted this fight, I told Mia. I just wanted to share the world with people. Sometimes the biggest fights find us when we're just trying to be ourselves, she replied. You coming to the studio tomorrow? Jackson's offering to help you film a follow-up. I glanced at the divorce papers still sitting in my bag, then at the producer's message on my phone. Yeah, I'll be there. I think it's time to show them exactly what happens when you try to cage someone who was born to fly. My laptop pinged with another email notification, Lorraine again, probably with more threats or guilt trips. I closed the browser without reading it. They'd had months to scheme and plot against me. Now it was my turn to write the story, and this time, I was making sure it had a different ending. The meeting with the Travel Network producer went better than I could have dreamed. Sitting in Jackson's studio, I stared at the contract in front of me, my hands shaking slightly as I read through the terms. They want to do a whole series? Mia paced behind me, practically vibrating with excitement. About women breaking free from traditional expectations around the world? 6 episodes to start, I confirmed, still processing it myself. Each featuring a different country and different stories of women who chose their dreams over society's demands. Jackson leaned against his editing desk. This is huge, Avery. Like, life-changing huge. My phone buzzed. Eric again. I'd been dodging his calls since the email expose, but this time I answered. What? Mother's in the hospital. My heart stuttered. What happened? Anxiety attack. After your little stunt with those emails went viral, her church group started asking questions. She couldn't handle the shame. The guilt hit hard, exactly as he intended. That's not fair, Eric. Fair? Was it fair to expose private family matters to the world? To humiliate us both for some internet fame? I looked at the contract on the table, then at my friends watching with concern. No. What wasn't fair was you two plotting behind my back to destroy my career. What wasn't fair was, she's asking for you, he interrupted. Says she needs to explain something. Something about her own mother. I caught Mia's eye, saw her subtle head shake of warning. I can't. I have a meeting. More important than family? You lost the right to play the family card when you chose your mother's happiness over your wife's. Silence stretched between us. Then, I saw the video. The one about the chef in Rome. You actually watched it? Yes. His voice softened. She reminded me of you. Passionate. Determined. A pause. Scared of disappointing everyone. My throat tightened. I'm not scared anymore. I know. That's what terrifies me. After we hung up, I stared at my phone until Jackson cleared his throat. You okay? They're trying to pull me back in, I said. Using guilt, using family, using everything they know about me. What are you going to do? I picked up the contract. I'm going to sign this. Then I'm going to visit my mother-in-law. Avery, Mia started, but I cut her off. Not because they guilt-tripped me, but because I need her to see something. An hour later, I walked into Lorraine's hospital room, laptop under my arm. She looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in the hospital gown. Eric wasn't there. Probably at work, keeping up appearances. Come to finish what you started? Her voice was weak, but still carried that edge. No. I set up my laptop. I came to show you something. I pulled up the rough cut of my next video, interviews with my followers sharing their stories of breaking free. Women who started businesses in their 50s, who went back to school after divorce, who traveled the world solo after years of being told they couldn't. These are the lives you wanted to prevent, I said quietly. These are the dreams you tried to crush because they scared you. You don't understand. But I do, because they told me about the Lorraines in their lives too. The women who tried to keep them small because they never got the chance to be big themselves. Her face crumpled. My mother didn't let you pursue art school. I know. Eric told me once. Tears slid down her cheeks. I was trying to protect you from disappointment. No, I closed the laptop. You were trying to protect yourself from regret. But it's not too late, Lorraine. Not for either of us. I left the contract on her bedside table as I walked out. Let her see what her daughter-in-law was capable of. Let her understand what she'd tried to stop. My phone buzzed with a text from the producer. When can you start filming? I smiled as I typed back. How soon do you need me? Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's world. Sometimes it's about building your own so magnificently that they have to watch from the sidelines, knowing they tried to stop it from existing. The dinner was my idea. One last attempt at reconciliation, I told myself, though deep down I knew it was more about proving something. I'd spent the afternoon cooking a traditional Italian feast, recreating recipes I'd learned in Tuscany. The same recipes that had helped launch my channel's success. Eric arrived first, wearing the careful expression of a man walking into a minefield. Smells good. Thanks. I kept my focus on plating the osso buco. Your mother here yet? She's parking. Avery. He stepped closer. About the hospital visit. The doorbell cut him off. Lorraine swept in, designer handbag clutched like a shield. Well, isn't this quaint? I'd set the dining room table with my best dishes, candles flickering against the growing darkness outside. The travel network contract sat beside my plate and signed, but impossible to ignore. I made everything from scratch, I said, serving the food, including the recipes I learned from that grandmother in Florence. The one whose video you both refused to watch. Lorraine picked up her fork with practiced elegance. Dear, about that contract. Let's eat first, Eric interrupted. Can we just have one normal family dinner? Normal? The word tasted bitter. Like the normal life you planned for me behind my back? Avery, Lorraine's voice carried that familiar warning tone. We've apologized. What more do you want? Apologized? I set down my wine glass harder than intended. You had an anxiety attack and played the victim. Eric blamed me for humiliating you. Neither of you has actually apologized. Because there's nothing to apologize for, Eric snapped. We were trying to help you. Help me. I pulled out my phone, opening my analytics app. My channel has over 1 million subscribers now. The video about that Roman chef? It paid for this dinner. The series about breaking free from toxic expectations? It's funding my lawyer. Lorraine's fork clattered against her plate. Lawyer, did you think I wouldn't fight back? I turned to Eric. Did you really believe I'd just give up everything I've built because you and your mother decided it wasn't proper enough? We decided? Eric laughed, but it wasn't kind. You decided years ago that your internet fame was more important than our marriage. Internet fame? I stood up, hands shaking. I built a business. I created something meaningful. While you two were plotting to cage me in some corporate job, I was helping other women find their voice. And what about my voice? Eric stood too. What about what I wanted? What you wanted? I gestured at Lorraine. Or what she wanted for you. Don't you dare, Lorraine started, but I cut her off. No, I'm done being polite. I'm done pretending this is about family or stability or whatever excuse you're using this week. This is about control. This is about you being so scared of change that you'd rather destroy your son's marriage than let him be happy with someone who doesn't fit your mold. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Then Lorraine reached for her bag, pulling out a familiar document. The contract I'd left at the hospital. You want to know what I think about your success? She ripped the contract in half. I watched the pieces flutter to the table, something breaking and reforming inside me. Thank you. Thank you. Eric looked confused. Yes. I walked to my office, returning with another copy of the contract, this one already signed. Thank you for finally showing me who you really are. Both of you. What does that mean? Lorraine's voice wavered. It means I start filming next week. In Paris. I picked up the torn contract pieces. And when I get back, I won't be coming home. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. Avery, wait. Eric reached for me, but I stepped back. I made tiramisu for dessert, I said, gathering my keys and phone. Enjoy it. Consider it a parting gift, proof that sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living well. I walked out of my house for the last time, leaving them with their cold osso buco and shattered expectations. In my car, I texted Mia, "It's done. Can you help me pack tomorrow?" Her response was immediate. "Proud of you. Wine and boxes are ready whenever you are." I started the engine, watching the dining room lights through the window. Sometimes you have to burn bridges to stop yourself from crossing them again. The morning I planned to leave for Paris, I woke up to find my YouTube channel gone. Not just a video or two, the entire channel had vanished. 5 years of work, over 1 million subscribers, everything that proved I wasn't just playing at success, disappeared overnight. My hands shook as I called Jackson. "Someone hacked me. Everything's gone." "I'm on it," he said. "But Avery, there's more. Check your email." The travel network's message was brief, due to concerns about recent controversies and channel instability. "We regret to inform you that we must withdraw our offer." My phone buzzed with a text from Eric, "Mother knows people in television. Maybe now you'll understand what real stability means." I sat on Mia's guest bed, surrounded by half-packed boxes, trying to breathe. They'd finally done it. They'd found a way to clip my wings. "We can fight this," Mia said, pacing the room. "Jackson knows cybersecurity people. We can prove." "Prove what?" My voice cracked. "That my mother-in-law has connections? That my husband's firm probably handled the network's accounts? They made it look legitimate. Clean." My phone kept buzzing. Followers asking what happened. Collaborators wondering about planned projects. Each notification felt like another brick in the wall they were building around me. Then came Lorraine's call. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ready to be reasonable?" Her voice dripped with false concern. "Eric's willing to forget all this unpleasantness. The marketing position is still open. Did you enjoy it?" My voice was eerily calm. "Destroying something I built just because you couldn't control it? Oh, darling. We saved you from yourself. From this fantasy world you'd created. Real life isn't about gallivanting around the globe, pretending to be something you're not. The only pretending I did was trying to be the daughter-in-law you wanted. Come home, Avery. Stop this foolishness." I ended the call and turned to Mia. "I need your camera." "What?" "Your camera. And help me set up my phone to record." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "They can take down your channel, but they can't stop me from starting over." I was already pulling out my laptop. "Call Jackson. Tell him to bring his equipment. We're doing this live." An hour later, we had a makeshift studio set up in Mia's living room. 3 cameras, proper lighting, and a determination I hadn't felt since my first video. Going live in 3, 2. Jackson gave me the signal. "Hi, I'm Avery Quinn, and this isn't my usual setup. This morning, I woke up to find my channel deleted. 5 years of work, gone." "Why?" "Because I refused to give up my dreams to fit someone else's idea of success." My hands were steady now as I looked directly into the camera. "To my mother-in-law, who thinks she's teaching me a lesson about stability, thank you. You've taught me that true stability comes from within, not from following someone else's rules. To my soon-to-be ex-husband, who chose control over love, thank you. You've shown me that sometimes losing everything is the first step to gaining something better. And to everyone watching, this is what starting over looks like. This is what they don't tell you about following your dreams. Sometimes people will try to stop you. Sometimes they'll succeed. But they can never take away your voice unless you let them." The viewer count kept climbing. Comments flooded in. Stories of similar experiences, offers of help, messages of support. Then came a comment that made my blood freeze. "Lying about your family for views? Pathetic. Hope you're ready for legal consequences." Eric's law firm's official account. I stared at the threat, feeling the walls close in again. They could destroy my career, my reputation, everything I'd built. They had the resources, the connections, the power. But as I looked at the growing support in the comments, at Mia and Jackson standing firmly beside me, I realized something. They could take away my platform, but they couldn't take away my story. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't fighting back, it's refusing to be silenced. I looked back at the camera, straightened my shoulders, and smiled. "So, who wants to hear about a little cafe in Paris I'll be visiting next week?" The viewer count hit 100,000 and kept climbing. The Netflix email arrived 3 months into my Paris stay. Not just an offer, a full series deal. 6 episodes, international production, complete creative control. Everything Eric and Lorraine had tried to destroy was rising from the ashes, stronger than before. I hadn't expected them to show up at my Paris apartment. But there they were, standing in my doorway like ghosts from a life I'd left behind. "Impressive view," Lorraine said, pushing past me into the sunlit space. "The firm's been following your recovery with interest." Eric lingered by the door, looking uncomfortable in his tailored suit. "We saw the Netflix announcement. Did you?" I kept my voice neutral, though my hands itched to grab my phone and start recording. Funny how life works out sometimes. "Darling," Lorraine settled onto my couch like she owned it. "We've been thinking. Perhaps we were hasty in our approach." "Hasty?" I laughed, the sound echoing off the Parisian walls. "You destroyed my channel. Threatened me with legal action. Tried to force me into submission. And look how well you've landed on your feet." She smiled, all teeth. "Thanks to our motivation. Mother," Eric warned, but she waved him off. "The family name still carries weight," she continued. "We could help with the Netflix project. Open doors. Make introductions." I walked to my window, looking out at the Eiffel Tower in the distance. "Why are you really here?" "The firm's struggling," Eric admitted quietly. "Your story. It resonated with people. Clients are asking questions about how we handled things. So this isn't about reconciliation," I turned back to them. "It's about damage control. It's about family," Lorraine insisted. "About putting the past behind us and moving forward. Together." My phone buzzed, a reminder about today's shoot. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was supposed to be filming a segment about women reclaiming their power. You know what the biggest lesson of all this has been? I moved to my filming setup, adjusting the camera. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones most afraid of your success. "What are you doing?" Eric stepped forward. "Creating content." I hit record. "Tell me, Lorraine, why did you really come to Paris? To support me? Or because your son's firm is bleeding clients after trying to silence a woman for choosing her career over conformity?" "Turn that off," she snapped, mask cracking. "No." I stood straighter. "You wanted to be part of my story? Here's your chance. Tell my viewers why you thought destroying someone's dreams was an acceptable form of family love." "This is ridiculous." Eric moved toward the camera, but I blocked him. "Touch my equipment and I'll add harassment to the documentary I'm making about toxic family dynamics. I'm sure Netflix will love that angle." Lorraine stood, composure finally shattering. "You ungrateful." "Grateful." I let my voice rise, knowing the camera caught every word. "For what? For teaching me that true family supports instead of suppresses? For showing me that success is the best revenge? Thank you, truly. I couldn't have built this new life without your attempts to destroy my old one." "Eric," Lorraine turned to her son, "are you going to let her speak to us this way?" But Eric was staring at me, really seeing me maybe for the first time. "You never needed our help, did you?" "No," I said softly. "I only needed you to believe in me. Both of you. But you couldn't handle a version of me that didn't fit your mold." "This isn't over." Lorraine grabbed her bag. "Actually, it is." I gestured to the door. "My crew will be here soon to film. Unless you'd like to stay and explain to them why you're here." They left without another word, but as the door closed, I heard Lorraine's sharp intake of breath. Through the window, I watched them hurry past the cafe where my camera crew was already setting up. I touched my phone, stopping the recording. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about letting people witness their own toxicity, perfectly framed and in focus. 1 year later, I stood in front of a packed auditorium in New York, preparing to screen the final episode of my Netflix series. The show had exceeded everyone's expectations, becoming a rallying cry for women fighting to define success on their own terms. Mia sat in the front row, beaming, while Jackson filmed from the side, probably for his own documentary about independent creators. The energy in the room crackled with anticipation. Then I saw her slip in through the back door. Lorraine, looking smaller somehow, clutching a familiar leather-bound notebook I recognized from her college days. The art portfolio she'd never shown anyone. I began my introduction. A year ago, I thought losing everything meant the end of my story. Instead, it was just the beginning. The lights dimmed, and the episode began to play. Afterward, during the Q&A, a young woman stood up. What would you say to the people who tried to stop you? Before I could answer, another voice cut through the crowd. Lorraine had made her way to the microphone. I can answer that, she said, her voice wavering. Because I was one of them. The room went silent. My heart pounded as she opened her portfolio, pulling out a yellowed piece of paper. 40 years ago, I got accepted to art school in Paris. Her hands shook. My mother tore up the acceptance letter. Said proper women don't abandon their families for foolish dreams. She looked directly at me. I became the very thing I hated because it was easier than admitting I was wrong. I gripped the podium, unsure whether this was another manipulation or something real. The firm filed for bankruptcy last month, she continued. Eric's starting over at a smaller company. He's happier, actually. Away from my influence. She managed a small smile. Your success didn't destroy us, Avery. It freed us. After the event, I found her waiting by the exit, clutching her portfolio like a shield. These are good, I said, glancing at the sketches she'd finally shared. Really good. I'm taking classes now, she admitted. Local art studio. Baby steps. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know that your revenge wasn't just about proving us wrong. It was about proving that it's never too late to be right. She handed me an envelope. I wrote this months ago, but never had the courage to send it. Later that night, in my hotel room, I opened her letter. Pages of confessions, regrets, and finally, understanding. The last line caught in my throat. Thank you for showing me that the dreams we bury don't die. They just wait for someone brave enough to dig them up again. My phone buzzed with a text from Eric. Saw your finale. You were right. About everything. I'm sorry it took losing you to find myself. I didn't respond, but I did open my laptop and start typing. Dear followers, let me tell you a story about revenge. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that rebuilds. The kind that shows others how to break free from their own cages. Mia called as I was finishing the post. You okay? That was intense with Lorraine. Yeah, I looked out at the New York skyline. You know what's funny? I spent so long trying to prove them wrong, I never considered that maybe what they needed was someone to prove it was okay to change. So what's next for the great Avery Quinn? I smiled, thinking of Lorraine's art portfolio, Eric's new start, and my own journey. I'm thinking of doing a series about late bloomers. People finding their passion after everyone told them it was too late. Revenge by inspiration? Mia laughed. Very you. No, I corrected her, watching the sun set over the city. Not revenge. Revolution. Sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing. They're about everyone finding their own path to freedom, even the ones who tried to clip your wings. Because in the end, the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong. It's in proving to yourself that you were right all along.
I never thought my marriage would unravel because of a piece of paper, but that's exactly how it started. My name is Harper, and until last Tuesday, I believed I had the kind of life people dream about: a loving husband, a charming townhouse in Boston's Back Bay, and a future full of promise. Amazing how quickly perfect can turn to poison. I was sorting through the mail that afternoon the way I always did when an ivory envelope caught my eye. Paper was expensive, the kind that feels like silk between your fingers. It was addressed to my husband, Ethan, but what made me pause was the handwriting, delicate cursive that looked more like artwork than letters. No return address. Anything interesting? Ethan called from his home office upstairs. The sound of his voice made me jump, and I nearly dropped the envelope. Just bills and junk, I answered, hating how my voice wavered. In our 3 years of marriage, I'd never once opened his mail. But something about that envelope made my stomach twist. I heard his footsteps on the stairs and quickly shuffled the envelope to the bottom of the pile. Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking exactly like the successful businessman he was. Perfectly pressed shirt, designer watch, that confident smile that had first drawn me to him at a mutual friend's gallery opening. You okay? You look pale, he said, crossing the room to kiss my forehead. Just tired. The bookstore was crazy today. I forced a smile, acutely aware of the envelope burning a hole in the stack of mail. How about pizza for dinner? He checked his watch. Can't tonight, sweetheart. Mother's hosting that charity thing at the house, remember? We need to be there by 7. Of course. Another Caldwell family obligation. I'd forgotten about Eleanor's latest fundraiser, probably because I'd been trying to. My mother-in-law had a way of making me feel like a charity case herself, even after 3 years. Right, I said. Let me just change in. Actually, why don't you skip this one? Ethan interrupted, loosening his tie. You've been working so hard lately. Take the evening off, relax. Something in his tone made me look up sharply. He'd never suggested I skip a family event before. In fact, Eleanor would usually call personally to ensure my attendance. Are you sure? Won't your mother mind? I'll handle mother. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. It's just boring donor stuff anyway. You'd be miserable. I watched him head upstairs to change, that ivory envelope suddenly feeling like a lead weight in my hands. When I heard the shower start, I did something I never thought I would do. I opened it. Inside was a single card, the same creamy color as the envelope. The message was simple: same time, same place. Don't keep me waiting again. My hand shook as I read it twice more. The implications were clear, but my brain refused to process them. This had to be a mistake, a mix-up, anything but what it seemed. I heard the shower stop and quickly resealed the envelope as best I could, slipping it back into the pile. When Ethan came down 20 minutes later in his best suit, I was sitting on the couch pretending to read. Sure you don't mind? He asked, grabbing his keys. Go, I said, amazed at how steady my voice sounded. Have fun. He kissed me goodbye, and I watched through the window as he pulled away in his Mercedes. As soon as his taillights disappeared around the corner, I grabbed my phone and pulled up my best friend Lily's number. My finger hovered over the call button. The thing about perfect lives is that they're like beautiful houses. Sometimes the prettiest facades hide the worst damage. I had a choice to make. I could pretend I never saw that note and keep living in my perfect house of cards, or I could start looking for cracks in the foundation. I pressed call. Lily's words from our late-night phone call still echoed in my head as I watched Ethan getting ready for work the next morning. Trust your gut, Harper. When have your instincts ever been wrong? Problem was, my gut was telling me things I didn't want to hear. You're up early, Ethan commented, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. There was a slight edge to his voice, probably because I'd barely spoken 2 words to him since he'd returned from Eleanor's charity event last night. Couldn't sleep. I sipped my coffee, studying him over the rim of my mug. How was the fundraiser? Same as always. Mother cornered every wealthy widow in Boston. He checked his phone, frowning. Speaking of Mother, she wants us over for dinner tonight. My stomach clenched. Tonight? But it's Wednesday. We never do family dinner on Wednesdays. She's insisting. Says she has something important to discuss. He wouldn't meet my eyes, still staring at his phone. I told her we'd be there at 7. You didn't think to check with me first? He finally looked up, irritation flashing across his face. Since when do you have other plans on Wednesday nights? That's not the point, Ethan. I set my mug down harder than necessary. You've been making all these decisions lately without even asking me. The charity event last night, now this dinner. What's really bothering you, Harper? He stepped closer, his cologne, different from his usual, making me feel slightly nauseated. Because this doesn't feel like it's about dinner with Mother. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something in his expression shifted. I have to go. Early meeting. With whom? The words slipped out before I could stop them. He paused at the door, jaw tightening. Clients, Harper. That's what businessmen do. They meet with clients. After he left, I sat at our kitchen island, staring at nothing. 3 years ago, I'd fallen in love with Ethan's confidence, his easy charm. Now those same qualities felt like walls keeping me out. My phone lit up with a text from Eleanor. "Darling, looking forward to dinner tonight. Wear something appropriate." I could practically hear her voice, dripping with polite disdain. In Eleanor's world, appropriate meant designer labels and family heirlooms, not the vintage dresses I loved from my bookstore salary days. I was about to reply when another text came through, this one from Ethan's Aunt Vivian. "Coffee at Lardison in an hour? Need your book recommendations." Winky face. Vivian had always been different from the rest of the Caldwells. Where Eleanor wielded sophistication like a weapon, Vivian's warmth felt genuine. Plus, she was the family gossip. If anyone knew what was really going on, it would be her. Lardison was busy when I arrived, but I spotted Vivian immediately, her silver hair elegant against her coral blazer. She waved me over, 2 lattes already waiting. "Harper, darling." She hugged me tight, then held me at arm's length. "You look tired." "Trouble sleeping." "Just work stress," I lied, settling into my chair. She stirred her latte. "Nothing to do with Eleanor's sudden Wednesday dinner plans?" I tried to keep my face neutral. "You know about that?" "Oh, I know many things." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Like the fact that Celeste Moore is back in town." The name hit me like a slap. Celeste Moore, the gorgeous brunette who'd been at every Caldwell event until about 4 years ago, right before I met Ethan. She'd vanished so completely I'd almost forgotten about her. "What does that have to do with anything?" Vivian's eyes softened with something that looked dangerously like pity. "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But if I were you, I'd pay very close attention at dinner tonight." My phone buzzed, another text from Ethan. "Might be late to Mother's. Meet you there." I showed Vivian the message. She read it, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Remember, Harper. In this family, nothing is ever quite what it seems." As I drove home, my mind raced. The ivory envelope. The mysterious meetings. Celeste's return. Felt like pieces of a puzzle were floating just out of reach, waiting to form a picture I wasn't sure I wanted to see. 7 o'clock couldn't come fast enough. Eleanor's dinner turned out to be anything but dinner. I sat alone at her mahogany dining table for 45 minutes before my mother-in-law finally emerged from her study. Perfectly coiffed and utterly unapologetic. "Oh, darling. Has Ethan not arrived yet?" She didn't wait for my answer, pouring herself a generous glass of wine. "He just texted, caught up at the office. Such a dedicated worker, my son." I gripped my water glass tighter. "You said this dinner was important, that you had something to discuss." "Did I?" Eleanor settled into her chair, studying me over the rim of her wine glass. "Well, since you're here, we might as well talk about the Foundation's upcoming gala. The seating arrangements are proving quite challenging." My phone buzzed. Another text from Ethan. "Sorry, sweetheart. Emergency meeting running late." "Don't wait up." Something snapped inside me. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I need to use the restroom." Instead of heading to the powder room downstairs, I climbed the familiar stairs to Ethan's old bedroom. Now his home office when he worked from his mother's house. The door was unlocked. They never expected me to snoop. I was the good daughter-in-law after all. The grateful scholarship girl who'd married up. I found what I was looking for in his suit jacket pocket, hung carelessly over his chair, a hotel key card for the Four Seasons. The same hotel mentioned in hushed conversations I'd pretended not to hear, in texts I'd glimpsed over his shoulder. My hands shook as I took a photo of the key card with my phone. As I slipped it back into his pocket, something else caught my eye, a receipt from the hotel's restaurant. 2 cocktails, dinner for 2, dated last night. During Eleanor's charity event. I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly moved to the hallway bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. When I returned downstairs, Eleanor was on the phone. Yes, darling, she's still here, she was saying. No, I haven't, of course not. She noticed me and quickly ended the call. That was Ethan, she said smoothly. He's worried about you driving home alone so late. Shall I have Harrison bring the car around? I smiled, channeling every lesson in poise she'd ever given me. Actually, I think I'll wait for Ethan at the hotel. Her perfectly plucked eyebrows rose slightly. Hotel? The Four Seasons. That's where his emergency meeting is, right? The flash of panic in her eyes confirmed everything. 20 minutes later, I sat in my car across from the hotel, watching the entrance. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to drive away, pretend I'd never seen the key card or the receipt. Pretend I didn't know exactly what I'd find if I walked through those doors. Then I saw them. Ethan emerged first, his tie loosened, hair slightly mussed. She followed a minute later, Celeste Moore, exactly as Vivian had warned. She was even more beautiful than I remembered from those old family photos, her dark hair falling in perfect waves, her red dress a splash of color against the night. I watched them share a lingering kiss before parting ways. Watched my husband straighten his tie, check his reflection in a window, and head toward his car. Watched him become the man I thought I knew again. My phone buzzed with a text from him. Meeting running longer than expected. Staying at Mother's tonight. I started my car, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. As I pulled away from the curb, I caught sight of Eleanor's driver, Harrison, parked discreetly across the street. Of course she'd had me followed. Of course she'd known. I drove straight to Lily's apartment, my mind already racing ahead to what came next. Because this wasn't just about Ethan's betrayal anymore. This was about 3 years of condescension, of subtle manipulations, of being made to feel grateful for crumbs of affection from the mighty Caldwell family. They thought I was weak, compliant, perfect, quiet wife who would accept whatever scraps of truth they deigned to throw her way. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lily's apartment became my war room. After 3 sleepless nights of planning, I finally made the call I'd been dreading. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Harper Monroe? It's been 10 years? Hello, Jack. I twisted the wedding ring on my finger. I need your help. Jack Lawson had been the smartest kid in our high school until he dropped out senior year to help support his family. Now he was one of Boston's most discreet private investigators. And more importantly, he had no connections to the Caldwell family. Meet me at Cafe Luna in an hour, he said. And Harper? Bring cash. Cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. Jack hadn't changed much, still had that sharp look in his eyes that made you feel like he could see right through you. He listened without interrupting as I laid out everything. The letter, the hotel, Celeste. You sure you want to pull this thread? He asked when I finished. Rich families like the Caldwells, they've got ways of making problems disappear. I'm already disappearing, I said. I need to know the truth. He nodded, sliding a contract across the table. 3 days. $5,000. I'll find out what your husband's really up to. I handed him an envelope of cash, nearly my entire savings from before my marriage. There's something else. I need you to look into Celeste Moore's history with the family. She vanished 4 years ago, right before I met Ethan. I need to know why. Careful, Jack warned. Sometimes the truth's worse than not knowing. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. Ethan, where are you? Mother's trying to reach you about the charity board meeting. I texted back that I was at work, the lie coming easily now. When I looked up, Jack was studying me. You're still living with him? If I leave now, I'll never know what really happened. I stood up. 3 days, Jack. That evening, I played my part perfectly. I sat through dinner with Ethan, nodding at his stories about work. I didn't flinch when he kissed my cheek, even though his cologne still carried traces of her perfume. But at midnight, my phone lit up with a text from Jack. Found something. Meeting tomorrow, same place, 8 a.m. Bring your laptop. Joy. When I arrived at the cafe the next morning, Jack was already there, looking grim. Before I show you this, he said, you need to understand something. This goes deeper than just an affair. He pulled out his tablet, showing me financial records, emails, photos. My hand shook as I scrolled through them. Celeste Moore didn't just disappear 4 years ago, Jack explained. She was paid to disappear. $2 million transferred from a Caldwell family trust. The same trust that's been bleeding money ever since. I don't understand. Look at the dates. He pointed to a series of transactions. The payments started again 3 months ago, right around the time she came back. My stomach lurched as the pieces started falling into place. She's blackmailing them, and your husband's been embezzling from his own family's foundation to pay her off. Jack leaned back. Question is, what does she know that's worth destroying a marriage over? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. A text from Vivian. Need to see you. Urgent. Come to my house now. I showed Jack the message. He frowned. Be careful. The aunt might seem friendly, but she's still a Caldwell. I gathered my things, my mind racing. Send everything to my secure email. And Jack? Keep digging into what happened 4 years ago. Whatever Celeste is holding over them, that's when it started. As I drove to Vivian's, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tight they hurt. I'd wanted the truth, but now the truth felt like a weapon, one that could destroy not just my marriage, but the entire Caldwell dynasty. The question was, did I have the courage to pull the trigger? Vivian's house felt different in the rain. The Georgian mansion I'd visited countless times for family brunches now loomed like something from a Gothic novel. I almost turned around when I saw Eleanor's car in the circular drive. Inside, voices drifted from Vivian's study. I recognized Eleanor's precise tone, then Vivian's sharper reply. She deserves to know. Know what? I asked from the doorway. They turned, startled. Eleanor's face was ashen, missing its usual perfect makeup. Vivian sat behind her desk, holding what looked like an old photograph. Harper! Eleanor smoothed her skirt, recovering quickly. This is a private family matter. I'm family. The words tasted bitter. Or have you forgotten that while planning your son's secret meetings with Celeste? Eleanor's eyes widened. Vivian made a sound between a laugh and a sigh. Well, Vivian said, that saves us some explanation. She held out the photograph. Though not all of it. Picture was old, yellowed at the edges. In it, a younger Eleanor stood with a man who wasn't Ethan's father. They were both beaming at a baby in Eleanor's arms. That's not Richard, I said, meaning Ethan's father. Who? My first love, Eleanor said quietly. And Celeste's father. The room tilted. I gripped the back of a chair. Ethan doesn't know, Vivian added. Neither does Celeste. Their father died before either was born. My voice failed. Ethan and Celeste are half-siblings. Eleanor's voice cracked. I gave her up for adoption. It was what everyone expected back then. Unmarried mother, prominent family. My phone buzzed, another text from Jack. Found adoption records. Call immediately. Does Ethan know? I asked, already knowing the answer. About the money? The blackmail. Eleanor's face hardened. Blackmail? What are you talking about? I pulled up the financial records on my phone, hands shaking as I showed them. $2 million 4 years ago. More payments starting 3 months ago. Your son has been embezzling from the foundation to pay her off. Vivian stood so quickly her chair toppled. That's impossible. I handle all the foundation's accounts. Not the private trust, I said. The one Richard set up for Ethan before he died. Eleanor sank into a chair, her aristocratic posture crumbling. Oh God. She must have found out somehow. The adoption records. But Ethan's payments started recently, I pressed. Why would he? My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan. Where are you? We need to talk. I found something in your email. I shot through my veins. I'd left my laptop open at home, logged into the email where Jack had sent everything. I have to go. I turned, but Vivian caught my arm. Harper, wait. There's more you need to know about Celeste. About what really happened 4 years ago. Let her go, Eleanor said, her voice hollow. She's already decided what kind of story this is. Haven't you, dear? The wealthy family's dark secret. The faithless husband. De perfecte. I pulled away from Vivian's grip. You're wrong. This stopped being about revenge the moment I saw that photograph. Now it's about survival. Rain pounded against the windows as I drove home, my mind racing. Siblings. The word echoed like a curse. Did they know? Was that why Ethan had been paying her? Or was there something even darker hidden in the Caldwell family's perfect facade? My phone kept buzzing. Ethan. Jack. Vivian. I ignored them all. Because now I understood what I had to do. This wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore. It was about protecting Ethan, from Celeste, from his mother's lies, and maybe even from himself. But first, I had to get home before he finished reading those emails. The lights were on in our townhouse when I pulled up. Through the window, I could see Ethan pacing in his study, phone pressed to his ear. I took a deep breath and reached for the door handle. Time to find out what kind of story this really was. The front door felt heavier than usual as I pushed it open. Ethan stood in his study doorway, my laptop open on his desk behind him. His face held an expression I'd never seen before, something between rage and fear. Were you ever going to tell me? His voice was deadly quiet. About Celeste? I stepped inside, keeping my distance. Were you? He laughed, a harsh sound that made me flinch. About hiring a private investigator. About digging through my family's history. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know everything, Ethan. About the payments, about Eleanor, about... Stop. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing my arm. You need to listen very carefully. Celeste is dangerous. The money wasn't for what you think. Let go of me. I twisted free, backing toward the door. She's your sister, Ethan. Your half-sister. All the color drained from his face. What? My phone buzzed, Jack again. I ignored it. Eleanor told me everything. The adoption, the cover-up. No. Ethan shook his head. No, that's not. Celeste isn't my sister. She's Richard's daughter. The world tilted sideways. What? From his first marriage. The one nobody talks about. His laugh was bitter now. Mother didn't give her up, his first wife did. When she found out he was leaving her for Mother. My phone kept buzzing. Finally, I answered. Jack, not now. Harper, get out of there. Jack's voice was urgent. Celeste just left Eleanor's house. She had a gun. The front door burst open before I could respond. Celeste stood there, mascara running down her cheeks, looking nothing like the polished woman from the hotel. You couldn't leave it alone, could you? She wasn't looking at me, but at Ethan. Had to play the noble brother, protecting everyone's secrets. Celeste, don't, Ethan started. Shut up. She pulled the gun from her purse. Tell her. Tell your perfect little wife what really happened 4 years ago. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ethan, I found out what Father did, he said quietly. How he'd paid off Celeste's mother to disappear with her. How he'd erased all trace of his first family to marry Mother. I tried to make it right. By paying me off. Celeste's hand shook. By making me disappear just like he did. By protecting you, Ethan shouted. Richard was still alive then. If he'd known you'd discovered the truth. Det truth? She laughed wildly. The truth is, you're just like him, throwing money at problems until they go away. Well, I won't go away this time. Everything happened at once. Celeste raised the gun. Ethan lunged forward. I screamed. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Ethan stumbled, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. Celeste stared at the gun like she'd never seen it before. Oh God, she whispered. Oh God, die dient man. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have heard the shot. Celeste turned and ran, leaving the gun on the floor. I knelt beside Ethan, pressing my hands against his wound. Stay still. Help is coming. Harper. His voice was weak. I'm sorry. I thought I could fix everything without anyone getting hurt. Like father, like son, I said bitterly. He caught my wrist with his good hand. The money. It wasn't just payments. I was helping her build a new life away from all this. I couldn't tell anyone, not even you. If Mother had found out about Richard's first marriage while he was alive. The sirens grew closer. Through the window, I saw Eleanor's car screech to a halt outside. In the chaos that followed, paramedics, police, Eleanor's hysteria, I felt strangely calm. 'Cause I finally understood. There are no heroes or villains in family stories. Just people trying to protect the ones they love, usually in all the wrong ways. Question was, what would protecting myself look like now? The hospital waiting room felt like limbo. 3 hours had passed since they'd taken Ethan into surgery and still no word. Eleanor paced while Vivian watched her with tired eyes. I sat apart from them, clutching my phone, waiting for news about Celeste. Jack's text came just after midnight. Found her. 4 seasons. Same room as before. I stood up. Eleanor's head snapped toward me. Where are you going? To finish this. Harper, Vivian warned. Let the police handle it. The police don't know what we know. I grabbed my coat. About Richard. About any of it. Eleanor blocked my path. You've done enough damage. Me. I laughed, the sound sharp in the quiet room. You built this house of lies, Eleanor. All of you. I just lived in it. The 4 Seasons lobby was deserted when I arrived. The night clerk recognized me from my previous visit, his eyes widening. Room 742, I said. Call the police in 10 minutes. The elevator ride felt endless. When I reached her door, I didn't knock. I had Ethan's key card, the one that had started all this. Celeste sat on the bed, still in her blood-stained clothes. The room reeked of whiskey. Come to arrest me? Her voice was hollow. No. I closed the door. I came to understand. Understand what? How it feels to be erased. She took another drink. To watch your father build a perfect new family while pretending you never existed? Ethan tried to help you. Help me. She stood, swaying slightly. He paid me to stay quiet. Just like Richard did with my mother. The Caldwell solution. Throw money at the problem until it goes away. Then why come back? Because I wanted them to see me. The glass shattered against the wall. Really see me. Not as some dirty secret, but as family. By threatening Ethan? By shooting him. I never meant. She sank back onto the bed. I just wanted to belong somewhere. Footsteps in the hallway. Vivian's voice. Harper? Are you in there? I opened the door. Vivian entered, followed by Eleanor. The 3 Caldwell women, facing their prodigal daughter. Hello, Mother, Celeste said to Eleanor. Or should I say stepmother? Eleanor flinched. I didn't know. About you, about Richard's first marriage. Not until after he died. But Ethan knew, Vivian added quietly. He found the papers in Richard's study. started tracking you down. To silence me. To protect you, I corrected. From Eleanor finding out while Richard was alive. From the scandal destroying both families. And now, Celeste looked at Eleanor. Now that everyone knows? Sirens wailed in the distance. Eleanor straightened, every inch the Caldwell matriarch. Now we stop hiding. All of us. Ethan's out of surgery, Vivian said. He's asking for both of you. Celeste's eyes met mine. Why would he want to see me? Because he's the only one who never saw you as a secret. Held out my hand. He saw you as family. The sirens grew closer. Celeste stared at my outstretched hand, tears cutting through her mascara. I can't take it back, she whispered. Any of it. No, Eleanor said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. But we can go forward. Together. When the police arrived, they found 4 women sitting quietly in a hotel room, telling the truth for the first time in decades. The whole truth about Richard, about the money, about a family built on secrets and shame. Later, as dawn broke over Boston, I sat by Ethan's hospital bed, watching him sleep. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. You okay? I thought about revenge, about justice, about the thin line between protecting and destroying the ones we love. About how sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't exposing the truth, but choosing what to do with it once it's exposed. No, I texted back. But I will be. We all will be. 6 months can change everything. The Boston winter had melted into spring, and I sat in my new apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes and the morning light. On my coffee table lay the final divorce papers, waiting for my signature. My phone buzzed, a text from Celeste. Coffee? The usual place. These meetings had become our strange ritual over the past few months, ever since she'd finished her court-mandated therapy. The charges had been reduced after Ethan refused to testify against her. Another Caldwell family solution, but maybe this time the right one. Lardison was quiet when I arrived. Celeste sat at our regular table, 2 lattes waiting. She looked different now, softer somehow, without the sharp edges of revenge to hold her together. Eleanor asked about you at the foundation meeting, she said as I sat down. She misses you in her Eleanor way. How's that going? Working with her. Surprisingly well. Turns out we're both good at organizing charity galas. She smiled faintly, though she still corrects my table settings. The foundation had been Eleanor's idea, transforming the private trust into a scholarship fund for children of broken families. A way to turn decades of secrets into something healing. And Ethan? Better. Physical therapy's helping. He's talking about moving to New York, starting fresh. She hesitated. He asks about you too. I touched the manila envelope in my bag containing the divorce papers. I know. He called yesterday. Are you going to sign? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Jack. Got the job. Starting Monday at the new agency. Thanks for the reference. Life's funny, I said, showing Celeste the message. A year ago, I hired Jack to expose your family's secrets. Now he's working for your security firm. Our family, she corrected gently. Whether you sign those papers or not. The bell above the door chimed. Vivian walked in, spotting us immediately. She'd been the bridge between all the broken pieces, somehow knowing exactly when to push and when to let things heal on their own. I hoped I'd find you both here, she said, sitting down. Eleanor's planning a summer party at the house. Proper one with both families invited. All the families. I thought about the past 6 months, the therapy sessions, the careful reconstructions of truth from lies, the slow building of something new from the ashes of what we'd burned down. I should go, I said, standing. I have some papers to sign. Harper. Celeste caught my hand. Whatever you decide. Thank you. For showing us there's more than one way to be family. At home, I opened the divorce papers again. Behind them was another envelope, the one Ethan had left at my door last week. Inside was a single photograph. All of us at Christmas, even Celeste's mother, who Eleanor had finally tracked down. We looked messy, imperfect, real. On the back, Ethan had written, "Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes it means holding on differently." I picked up my pen, understanding finally that this wasn't an ending. It was a transformation. The Caldwell family would always be part of my story, not as the perfect facade I'd married into, but as the beautifully flawed reality we'd all discovered together. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Eleanor. "The foundation board meeting is Thursday. Your seat is still empty." I looked at the divorce papers, then at the Christmas photo. Sometimes the hardest part isn't choosing between right and wrong, but finding the courage to choose both, to let go of what was while holding space for what could be. I picked up my pen and began to write not just my name but my own ending. Or maybe it was a beginning. With families like ours, it's sometimes hard to tell the difference.
I never expected my life to unravel over a post-it note. You know those small yellow squares people use for quick reminders? Yeah, one of those was about to turn my world upside down. My name is Jamie, and until last Tuesday, I thought I had it all figured out. Great career, loving husband, and the kind of life that made other people wonder how I managed to keep all the plates spinning. Spoiler alert, I didn't. I just returned from a 3-day business trip to Chicago, dragging my wheeled suitcase through our quiet house at 11 p.m. The lights were off, except for the dim glow of the kitchen under-cabinet lighting we always left on. That's when I saw it, a yellow square stuck to the refrigerator door. Need some time to think. Don't wait up. 8 words. That's all Ethan left me after 12 years together, 5 of them married. I stood there in my wrinkled blazer, still wearing my uncomfortable heels, staring at his handwriting until the letters started to blur. "Ethan?" I called out anyway, my voice echoing through our empty house. No response, of course. Just the quiet hum of the refrigerator and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I pulled out my phone and dialed his number. It rang once, twice, then went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's Ethan. Leave a message." "Hey, just got home. Got your note. Call me when you can." I tried to keep my voice casual, like I wasn't standing in our dark kitchen at nearly midnight, talking to his voicemail while my stomach tied itself in knots. I kicked off my heels and walked through the house, flipping on lights as I went. Everything looked normal, almost too normal. His laptop was missing from his usual spot on the coffee table, but otherwise, there were no signs of. What was I even looking for? My phone buzzed, and I nearly dropped it in my rush to check the screen. But it was just a text from Helen, my mother-in-law. "Hope you had a safe flight home, sweetheart. Lunch tomorrow." I stared at her message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Helen had been more of a mother to me than my own in the past few years. She'd know if something was wrong with Ethan, wouldn't she? Instead of replying, I walked upstairs to our bedroom. Ethan's side of the closet looked untouched, his suits hanging in their usual order. His dresser drawers were closed, his watch still on the nightstand. Everything seemed fine, except for the gnawing feeling in my gut that nothing was fine at all. I changed into one of his old t-shirts, a habit I'd picked up years ago, and sat on our bed, scrolling through my phone. No new messages from Ethan. No missed calls. Just that stupid yellow post-it note downstairs, mocking me with its vagueness. The last time I'd seen him was Sunday morning, before I left for my flight. We'd had coffee together, talked about his mother's upcoming doctor's appointment, made plans for the weekend. Everything had seemed normal. Hadn't it? But now that I thought about it, there had been something off in his smile when he kissed me goodbye. A hesitation in his hug that I'd brushed off as early morning sluggishness. The way he'd lingered in the doorway watching me load my suitcase into the Uber. My phone buzzed again, another text from Helen. Ethan mentioned he might be working late this week. Everything okay? I felt my chest tighten. Working late? Since when did Ethan work late? As an IT consultant, he usually kept regular hours, often working from home. Something wasn't adding up. I typed back quickly, just got home. Everything's fine. Lunch tomorrow sounds great. But as I lay there in our too-empty bed, staring at the ceiling fan slowly spinning above me, I knew I was lying. Nothing was fine. That little yellow post-it note was just the beginning, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew our life together was about to change forever. I just didn't know how much. The hospital corridor smelled like artificial lemons and broken promises. I'd come straight from work to visit Helen, still wearing my power suit like some kind of corporate armor. The text from the hospital had arrived during my morning meeting. Helen had been admitted after a bad fall. Jamie, sweetheart. Helen's face lit up as I entered her room, though I could see the pain behind her smile. She was propped up against stark white pillows, looking smaller than usual in the hospital bed. You didn't have to rush over. Of course I did. I leaned down to hug her, careful of the 4 in her arm. Have you heard from Ethan? I tried calling him. A flicker of something, confusion, concern, crossed Helen's face. He stopped by briefly this morning. Said he had some work emergency. She paused, studying my face. Is everything all right between you two? I busied myself arranging the flowers I'd brought, buying time to steady my voice. Why do you ask? Mother's intuition, maybe. Helen reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. He seems distracted lately. Not himself. He left me a note last night, I admitted, sinking into the visitor's chair. Said he needed time to think. Hasn't been home since. Helen's monitor beeped steadily in the background as she processed this. That doesn't sound like my son. No, I agreed. It doesn't. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan, sorry about last night. Crazy work situation. Talk soon. I showed Helen the message. She frowned, her fingers tightening around mine. Jamie, there's something. The door opened, and a nurse walked in with Helen's medication. The moment shattered like glass, whatever Helen had been about to say lost in the routine of vital signs and pill cups. Mrs. Lark, how's your pain level? The nurse asked, checking Helen's chart. Oh, manageable, Helen said, but I saw her wince as she shifted position. Though I wouldn't say no to something stronger. While the nurse adjusted Helen's medication, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Greg. Hey, you guys free for dinner Friday? Megan's making her famous lasagna. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Greg and Megan had been our friends since college, but the thought of pretending everything was normal made my stomach churn. Who's that? Helen asked after the nurse left. Greg. Dinner invitation. Go, Helen insisted. You need to get out, not sit here watching me sleep. Besides. She paused, that same strange look crossing her face. Maybe Ethan will actually show up for that. Before I could respond, my phone rang, work calling. I stepped into the hallway to take it, watching through the window as Helen closed her eyes. Her face tight with pain that had nothing to do with her fall. When I returned, Helen was holding a small photo album I recognized from her bedside table at home. Look what Ethan brought this morning, she said, patting the bed beside her. Come see. I sat on the edge of her bed, and she opened the album. There we were, Ethan and me on our wedding day, both of us laughing at something off camera. I remembered that moment. Greg had tripped over his own feet trying to take the picture. You know what I see when I look at this? Helen asked softly. I see my son looking at you like you're his whole world. Helen. Let me finish. She turned the page. Another photo, this one from Christmas last year. Ethan and I in matching ugly sweaters, his arm around my waist. Something's wrong, isn't it? Something more than just a note. I stared at the photo, at our smiling faces, trying to pinpoint when things had started to change. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm going to find out. Helen closed the album, her hands trembling slightly. Jamie, there's something you should know about. Her monitor suddenly erupted in sharp beeps. Helen's face went pale, her hand clutching her chest. I lunged for the call button as she gasped for breath. Help! I shouted into the hallway. I need help in here. As medical staff rushed in, I was pushed aside, forced to watch helplessly as they worked on Helen. My phone buzzed again, another text from Ethan. But this one wasn't meant for me. Megan's lasagna sat untouched on my plate as I watched Ethan check his phone for the 1000th time that evening. We were at Greg and Megan's house for our usual Friday dinner, but nothing about this felt usual. Sorry, Ethan muttered, sliding his phone back into his pocket. Work stuff. On a Friday night? Greg raised an eyebrow. Man, they're working you too hard. I took a sip of wine, remembering the text I'd glimpsed on Ethan's phone at the hospital. The one that wasn't meant for me, miss you already. Can't wait until Friday. Jamie, how's Helen doing? Megan asked, refilling my glass without waiting for an answer. Her hand trembled slightly, spilling a few drops of red wine on the white tablecloth. Stable, I said, watching Megan dab at the stain with her napkin. The doctors say she can probably go home next week. That's great news. Greg smiled. We should all visit her this weekend. Ethan's phone buzzed again. He pushed back from the table. Sorry, I need to take this. As he walked onto the back porch, I noticed Megan's eyes following him. She quickly looked away when she caught me watching. So, Greg said, clearly trying to fill the awkward silence, anyone want dessert? Megan made tiramisu. I'll help you get it, Megan offered, practically jumping from her chair. Through the glass doors, I could see Ethan pacing, running his hand through his hair the way he did when he was stressed. His face was illuminated by his phone screen, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of his expression, not stressed, but smiling. Jamie? Greg's voice snapped me back. You okay? Yeah, just. I gestured vaguely at my barely touched lasagna. Not very hungry. In the kitchen, I heard a glass shatter, followed by Megan's muffled curse. Greg rushed to help her, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the view of my husband having what was clearly not a work call. My phone buzzed, a text from Helen, doctors say I can have visitors tomorrow. Will you come? Bring Ethan if you can find him. The sliding door opened, and Ethan returned, slipping his phone away with that same secret smile. Sorry about that. Where's dessert? Megan dropped something, I said, studying his face. Everything okay with work? Yeah, just a server issue. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Nothing major. Greg and Megan returned with the tiramisu, but Megan's eyes were red, and she'd changed her blouse. Everything okay in there? I asked. Fine. Megan's voice was too bright. Just clumsy me, breaking things. As Greg served dessert, I watched the way Megan's hands shook, the way Ethan kept checking his phone under the table. The way neither of them would look directly at anyone else. Actually, I said, standing up, I should probably go. Helen texted about visiting tomorrow, and I need to review some work documents tonight. I'll stay and help clean up, Ethan said quickly. Too quickly. No, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. You should come home. We need to talk. The room went silent. Greg looked between us, confusion clear on his face. Megan suddenly became very interested in her dessert. Can it wait? Ethan asked. I promised Greg I'd help him with his new gaming setup. Did you? I turned to Greg. Did he promise that? Greg shifted uncomfortably. We hadn't really. Right. I grabbed my purse. Thanks for dinner, Megan. The lasagna was delicious. Jamie, wait, Ethan started. No. I cut him off. Either come home now, or don't come home at all. Your choice. I walked out before anyone could respond, but through the front window, I saw Megan grab Ethan's arm, shaking her head slightly. He pulled away, but didn't follow me. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, watching the house. The text from the hospital was still open on my phone, miss you already. Can't wait until Friday. Friday. Dinner at Greg and Megan's. My hands stopped shaking as a strange calm settled over me. Now I knew. Now I could plan. Helen had tried to warn me, I realized. Before her attack, she'd been about to tell me something. Something about her son, and possibly about the woman I'd thought was my friend. Well, they wanted to play games. Fine. Game on. Ethan didn't come home that night. Or the next. Our house felt like a museum of someone else's life, photos on walls, mixed-up coffee mugs in the cabinet, his shoes still by the door. I spent Saturday morning in my home office, pretending to work while actually scrolling through months of phone records. The hospital called around noon. Jamie? Helen's voice was weak. Could you bring my gray cardigan from home? The one with the pearl buttons? Of course. I was already grabbing my keys. How are you feeling? Better now that I've seen Greg. There was a pause. He stopped by this morning. Alone. My hand froze on the doorknob. Greg came to see you. He seemed worried. Asked some strange questions about you and Ethan. I found Helen's cardigan in her bedroom closet, neatly hung next to other cardigans that all looked exactly the same to me. As I reached for it, something fell from the pocket, a small, leather-bound notebook. Jamie? Helen was still on the line. Are you there? Yeah, sorry. Just found your sweater. I picked up the notebook, recognizing Helen's careful handwriting. I'll be there soon. I hung up and opened the notebook. The first page was dated 3 months ago. Ethan came by today. Something's wrong, he's not himself. Mentioned trouble at work, but I know my son. This is different. When I asked about Jamie, he changed the subject. Megan dropped by later, asking about him. Said Greg was worried too. But the way she asked. My phone buzzed, a text from Greg, can we talk? Alone? I stared at the message, then back at Helen's notebook. The next entry was from 2 weeks ago. Saw them together at Carlton's cafe. They didn't see me. Ethan was holding her hand across the table. My heart breaks for Jamie. Should I tell her? Would she believe me? Another text from Greg, please. It's important. I texted back, coffee shop on 5th. 30 minutes. Greg was already there when I arrived, fidgeting with a paper napkin. He looked like he hadn't slept. I need to tell you something, he said as I sat down. About Megan. And Ethan. I know. He blinked. You do. Not everything. I placed Helen's notebook on the table. But enough. Greg stared at the notebook, then pushed his coffee aside. Last night, after you left. Megan confessed. They've been. He couldn't finish. How long? 6 months. His voice cracked. She says it's over, but the texts are still coming, I finished. The secret meetings. The lies. He nodded, looking destroyed. I found hotel receipts. Credit card statements. They were together when Helen had her attack. My coffee turned to acid in my stomach. What are you going to do? I don't know. Greg met my eyes. What are we going to do? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number, back off. You don't want this fight. I showed it to Greg. His face hardened. That's Megan's work phone, he said. She thinks I don't know about it. Another text, some things are better left alone. For Helen's sake. My hands started shaking, not from fear, but rage. They were threatening Helen now. Greg, I said, my voice deadly calm, how good are you still with computers? Good enough. Why? I showed him the threatening texts. Because I think it's time we stop playing defense. He studied my face for a moment, then pulled out his laptop. What do you need? Everything. Bank records, emails, phone logs. Especially from their work accounts. I took Helen's notebook back, clutching it like a weapon. They want to play dirty. Let's show them what dirty really looks like. As Greg started typing, my phone buzzed one more time. A message from Helen. The doctors found something on my latest scan. We need to talk. Soon. I looked at Greg, then at the notebook, then at the threatening texts. Time was running out, and I had to choose, protect Helen, expose the truth, or take revenge. Maybe, with the right plan, I could do all three. The doctor's words hung in the air like smoke, stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Helen sat in her hospital bed, calm as ever. While I felt the room spin around me. How long have you known? I managed to ask. A few weeks. Helen reached for my hand. I didn't want to add to your troubles. My phone buzzed, another work email about the upcoming Thanksgiving conference in New York. I was supposed to give the keynote speech, a career-defining moment. The timing couldn't have been worse. Does Ethan know? Helen's silence was answer enough. She hadn't told him, and he hadn't been around to notice. I'll cancel my trip, I said. The conference can find another speaker. Absolutely not. Helen's grip tightened. I won't have you sacrificing your career. Ethan can take care of me. I almost laughed at that. Ethan, who hadn't been home in days. Ethan, who was too busy with Megan to visit his own mother in the hospital. My phone buzzed again. Greg this time, found something in their emails. You need to see this. Jamie? Helen's voice pulled me back. There's something else you should know. Before she could continue, Ethan walked in. He looked surprised to see me, like he'd been hoping to avoid exactly this scenario. Mom, he said, barely glancing my way. How are you feeling? Like I have cancer, Helen replied dryly. But you'd know that if you'd been here when the doctors explained everything. Ethan flinched. I've been busy with work? I finished for him. Strange, since Greg mentioned your company's been on holiday schedule this week. The tension in the room could have powered a small city. Ethan's phone chimed, that familiar sound that made my stomach turn. You should get that, I said. Might be important. Helen watched this exchange with knowing eyes. Ethan, why don't you get me some water? Once he left, Helen pulled something from under her pillow, an envelope. I wrote this weeks ago, when I first suspected. Everything. Don't open it yet. Wait until after Thanksgiving. Helen. Promise me. Her voice was steel. And promise you'll go to that conference. I have my reasons. My phone lit up with Greg's messages. Email trail shows hotel bookings. Financial transfers. They're planning something over Thanksgiving. Ethan returned with the water, and his phone chimed again. This time, I caught a glimpse of the screen. Everything's arranged for next week. Once she's in New York. The pieces clicked together like a terrible puzzle. They were waiting for me to leave town. Planning something while I was gone. I should go, I said, standing. Need to prepare for the conference. You're still going? Ethan asked too quickly. Of course. I smiled, channeling every business negotiation I'd ever conducted. It's important for my career. You'll take care of Helen, right? He nodded, relief visible on his face. Of course. I hugged Helen goodbye, feeling the envelope crinkle between us. I'll see you after Thanksgiving. In the hallway, I texted Greg, need a favor. How good are you at accessing security cameras? His response was immediate, already on it. What's the plan? I looked back through the hospital room window. Helen was showing Ethan her notebook, the decoy one I'd planted earlier, not the real one in my purse. Ethan was falling for it, just like he'd fall for my apparent departure for New York. They think I'm leaving town, I wrote to Greg. Let's give them exactly what they want. Another text from Megan's burner phone arrived, smart choice about the conference. Some distances are better kept. I clutched Helen's envelope, my decision crystallizing. They thought they were setting a trap, but they just walked into mine. One more thing, I texted Greg. Book me a hotel room in New York. Make sure everyone knows about it. Let them think they had me figured out. Let them think I was running away. Thanksgiving was going to be interesting this year. The security footage from our house played on Greg's laptop, showing Ethan and Megan entering at 2 a.m. I watched from my rental car parked across the street, where I'd been since supposedly leaving for New York yesterday. They're in your bedroom, Greg's voice crackled through my earpiece. Want me to kill the feed? No. My voice sounded strange, even to me. Keep recording. My phone lit up with a text from Helen's nurse, Mrs. Lark asking for you. Says it's urgent. I gripped the steering wheel harder, torn between two betrayals unfolding simultaneously. The one in my bedroom and the one at the hospital, where Ethan hadn't visited Helen once since I'd left. Jamie, Greg warned, they're accessing your home office computer. Of course they were. The fake financial documents I'd left there would keep them busy. What they didn't know was that every keystroke was being logged, every file access recorded. Another text from Helen's nurse, doctor says her condition is deteriorating rapidly. Greg, I said, send me the hospital's security feed. The split screen on my phone showed two scenes, my bedroom and Helen's hospital room. My husband and his lover rifling through my personal files while my mother-in-law lay alone, fighting for her life. Helen's envelope sat heavy in my jacket pocket, still unopened. Wait until after Thanksgiving, she'd said. But watching her now, alone in that hospital bed, I couldn't wait any longer. My hands shook as I opened it. My dearest Jamie. By now you know about Ethan and Megan. What you don't know is why I've been protecting them. The cancer isn't new, I've known for months. Ethan discovered something in the insurance paperwork. Something that could ruin everything. Your company's health insurance, which covers me as a dependent, has a clause about pre-existing conditions. If they discover I knew about the cancer before the policy took effect. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Helen had kept quiet about her diagnosis to protect my career, while Ethan and Megan had been using this information to. Movement in your office, Greg interrupted. They're accessing your work emails. On the hospital feed, Helen's monitors started beeping erratically. Medical staff rushed into her room. Jamie, Greg's voice was urgent, they're sending emails from your account. Something about insurance fraud. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. They weren't just having an affair, they were setting me up. Using Helen's condition to manufacture a fraud case against me. Once I was discredited and fired, Helen would lose her insurance coverage. My phone rang, the hospital's number. Mrs. Lark is asking for you, the nurse said. She's very agitated. The doctor says. In my bedroom, Ethan and Megan were celebrating, champagne in hand. My champagne. My bed. My life. The doctor says she may not make it through the night. I started the car, then stopped. If I went to the hospital, I'd lose the evidence I needed to stop them. If I stayed, I might lose Helen. Greg, I said, send everything to my lawyer. Everything. Already done. But Jamie, there's something else. Something in their emails about Helen's original diagnosis. The hospital feed showed Helen reaching for her phone, her hands shaking. My phone buzzed with her message. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have told you sooner. The insurance. It wasn't just about me. Check the dates on Ethan's first email to Megan. The day I got my diagnosis. The day your company announced your promotion. The day everything started falling apart." In my bedroom, Ethan raised his glass in a mock toast, unaware he was being recorded. Unaware that his mother was dying. Unaware that his carefully constructed plan was about to backfire. But as I sat there, watching both screens, I realized I couldn't win this one. Not completely. Whatever I chose, justice or mercy, revenge or protection, I would lose something precious. Helen's monitor flatlined. And I made my choice. I walked into my house exactly 36 minutes after Helen's heart stopped. The champagne bottle still sat empty on my bedroom floor, but Ethan and Megan had moved to the kitchen. I could hear their laughter floating up the stairs as I silently made my way to my office. My laptop was still open, emails drafted and ready to send that would destroy my career. Evidence of insurance fraud carefully constructed to look like I'd known about Helen's condition all along. Their perfect plan. I pressed send on my own email, the one containing every recorded minute of their betrayal, copied to the board of directors, HR, and Greg's lawyer. Then I walked downstairs. "You're supposed to be in New York," Ethan said, freezing with a wine glass halfway to his lips. Megan dropped her phone, face draining of color. "Helen's dead." My voice didn't shake. "She died alone because her son was too busy trying to destroy his wife to visit his dying mother." Ethan's face went through a series of emotions, shock, grief, guilt, before settling on something harder. "Jamie, whatever you think you know. I know everything." I pulled out my phone, playing the security footage of them in my office. Every email. Every meeting. Every plan to use Helen's illness to frame me for fraud. Megan stepped forward, hands raised. "We can explain. Can you explain this?" I played Helen's final voice message, the one she'd recorded just before her heart gave out. Her voice filled the kitchen. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I told them everything. About the original diagnosis, about your plan with Megan. About the real insurance fraud, the one you committed 3 years ago." Ethan lunged for my phone, but I was ready. I stepped back, watching his face contort as his mother's confession continued. "You used my illness twice," Helen's voice accused. "Once to embezzle from your company, hiding the transactions under my medical bills. And now to frame Jamie when she got too close to discovering it." "Turn it off," Ethan growled. "Why?" "Afraid to hear how your mother spent her final hours making sure the truth came out." Megan grabbed her purse, heading for the door, but Greg was already there. He'd been waiting outside, and now he blocked the only exit. "Going somewhere?" he asked his wife. "The board has everything," I said, watching Ethan's face as it all crumbled around him. The real fraud evidence. The affair. Helen's statement. They're probably reading it right now. Ethan's phone started ringing. Then Megan's. Then mine. "You don't understand," Ethan pleaded, suddenly desperate. "I did it for Mom. The insurance wouldn't cover her experimental treatments. So you stole the money," I finished. "I would have helped you, Ethan. We could have found another way." "And then what?" he spat. "Watch you play the hero while I remained the failing son. Watch my dying mother love you more than me." His words hung in the air, revealing the real betrayal, not just of our marriage, but of himself. My phone buzzed again, the hospital, asking about Helen's arrangements. In the end, she'd chosen me as her medical proxy, not Ethan. Her final act of trust. "The police will be here soon," Greg said quietly. "The board's filing charges." Megan started crying, but Ethan just stood there, staring at the phone still playing his mother's voice. His final message from her, and it was a testimony against him. I could have forgiven the affair, I said, turning to leave. But using your mother's death as a weapon? That's something Helen never forgave you for, and neither will I. Jamie, wait, Ethan called out, but I was already walking away. Outside, the November air was sharp with coming snow. My phone showed dozens of missed calls, the board, the police, the hospital. The next few hours would be chaos. But as I got in my car, I noticed one last unread message from Helen, sent moments before she died. Remember? Sweetheart, sometimes the best revenge is living well. I started the engine, leaving Ethan and Megan to face the consequences of their choices. Helen had taught me that justice and revenge aren't always the same thing. Sometimes they're better. 6 months after Helen's funeral, I stood in her garden, surrounded by the spring flowers she'd planted last fall. Her final gift, blooming in defiance of everything that had happened. The house sale was closing today. Ethan wouldn't be there, he couldn't be, given the conditions of his plea deal. The embezzlement charges had stuck, even if Megan had managed to avoid prosecution by turning state's evidence. Last box, Greg said, carrying a carefully wrapped photo album to my car. He'd been my rock through all of this, even as he navigated his own divorce from Megan. Found something you should see, he added, pulling an envelope from his pocket. It was hidden behind Helen's bedroom mirror. The envelope was dated 3 days before her death, addressed to me in her elegant handwriting. Inside was a key and a letter. My dearest Jamie. By the time you read this, you'll know everything. About Ethan's betrayal, about Megan, about the money. But there's one last thing you don't know, something I've kept hidden for 30 years. The key opens a safety deposit box at First National. What you find there might help you understand why I wasn't surprised by Ethan's actions. Some patterns repeat across generations, but you've shown me they can also be broken. You were the daughter I always wanted. Remember that. Love, Helen. My phone buzzed, a text from my lawyer. Ethan signed the divorce papers. It's done. I looked at the key in my hand, then at the blooming garden. Helen had known, not just about Ethan's recent betrayals, but about something deeper, older. Something she'd kept hidden until she was sure I was strong enough to handle it. Want company? Greg asked, noticing my expression. I shook my head. This one I need to do alone. The bank was quiet when I arrived. The safety deposit box contained a single manila envelope, thick with documents. On top was another note from Helen. The truth about Ethan's father, and why I never told anyone how he really died. My hands shook as I read the decades-old police reports, newspaper clippings, and Helen's private journals. The pattern she'd mentioned became clear, a history of financial fraud, betrayal, and secrets that had shaped both mother and son. But Helen had broken the cycle. She'd chosen truth over protection in the end, chosen justice over family loyalty. Chosen me. My phone buzzed again, work this time. The promotion I'd been worried about losing had turned into a CEO position at a competing firm. Life had a way of surprising you. As I drove home, I passed the street where Megan now lived alone, where Greg was rebuilding his life, where Ethan had lost everything. The revenge I'd wanted had come naturally, without me having to orchestrate it. Helen had taught me that too. Sometimes justice works best when you step back and let truth do its work. At home, I found one last surprise, a small package from Helen's lawyer. Inside was a set of garden tools and seeds, with a final note. For your new beginning. Some gardens grow better after a fire. I stood in my backyard, holding the seeds Helen had chosen for me months ago, planning for a future she wouldn't see but had helped create. The spring air was thick with possibility. My phone lit up with another text, an unknown number. For a moment, I tensed, remembering those threatening messages from months ago. But this was different. Thank you for the flowers on Mom's grave. You were a better child to her than I ever was. I didn't respond. Some conversations were better left in the past. Instead, I knelt in the soft earth and began to plant Helen's seeds, understanding finally what she'd meant about patterns and choices. About revenge and grace. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. Sometimes it's about growing something new in the ashes of what was lost. I dug my hands into the soil and began my new chapter, Helen's last lesson blooming around me like a garden after rain.
The buzzing of my phone jolted me awake at 3:17 a.m. Not the usual buzz of a text or call, but that distinct pattern of a security alert. In my groggy state, I almost dismissed it, but something made me look closer. The notification was from an app I'd never installed, Secure Track Alert, location data accessed. My name is Riley, and that notification was the first crack in the foundation of my perfectly ordinary life. I sat up in bed, careful not to wake Eric. He was sleeping soundly beside me, his back turned to my side as usual lately. The blue light from my phone cast strange shadows across our bedroom walls as I investigated the mysterious app. It wasn't visible on my home screen, but buried deep in my settings, I found it, Secure Track. Running quietly in the background for God knows how long. What the hell? I whispered, my fingers trembling slightly as I tapped through the unfamiliar interface. A map appeared, showing my movements from the past week, my daily drive to the high school where I teach, my Thursday coffee run with Sarah. Even my secret trip to that jewelry store where I'd been planning to buy Eric's anniversary gift. The bedroom suddenly felt too warm, too small. I slipped out of bed and padded down the hallway to the kitchen, passing Zoe's room where my 14-year-old daughter slept peacefully, unaware that her mother's world was starting to tilt on its axis. Under the harsh kitchen lights, I dug deeper into the app. There were more than just location tracks. My text messages, call logs, even my internet history had been monitored. Each discovery felt like another punch to the gut. Who would do this? Why? My hand shook as I reached for a glass of water. The house was dead quiet except for the soft hum of our refrigerator, making the whole situation feel even more surreal. I jumped when my phone buzzed again, another alert. Secure Track Alert, audio recording in progress. My blood ran cold. Audio recording? I frantically searched through the app settings until I found a folder labeled Recordings. The newest file was from 2 days ago, my conversation with Sarah at the coffee shop. I don't know, Sarah, my own voice played back through the phone speaker, tinny and distant. Eric's been different lately. Working late, always on his phone. I quickly stopped the playback, feeling sick. Someone had been listening to my private conversations. Someone had been tracking my every move. And given that this app needed physical access to install, the sound of footsteps upstairs made me freeze. They were heading toward our bedroom's in-sit bathroom, just Eric getting up to use the bathroom, like he did most nights. But for the first time in our 15 years of marriage, those familiar footsteps made my skin crawl. I quickly closed the app and deleted the alerts, my teacher's instincts kicking in. Don't show your hand too early. Gather evidence. Make a plan. My students would probably be shocked to know their Shakespeare-quoting English teacher was capable of such calculating thoughts. Back in bed, I laid awake listening to Eric's steady breathing, my mind racing. The man sleeping next to me, the father of my child, my partner of 15 years, what was he hiding that made him need to track my every move? Or was I the target of something bigger? One thing was certain, I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not until I understood what I was dealing with. Tomorrow, I'd start digging. Tomorrow, I'd begin unraveling whatever web of secrets had been spun around my life. As I finally drifted off to sleep, my phone buzzed one last time. In my exhaustion, I almost missed it, a text from an unknown number. Be careful what you look for, Riley. Some truths are better left buried. Morning came too quickly. I'd barely slept after discovering the spyware, but I forced myself through the motions of our usual routine. The kitchen filled with the smell of coffee and toast as I packed Zoe's lunch, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Eric came downstairs in his crisp blue suit, the one he always wore for important client meetings. He barely glanced at me as he poured his coffee into his travel mug. Big meeting today? I asked, keeping my voice casual while studying his reaction. Yeah, probably won't be home for dinner. He didn't meet my eyes, focused on stirring his coffee with mechanical precision. The Morrison account needs extra attention. The Morrison account. Right. The same excuse he'd used 3 times in the past 2 weeks. I wanted to scream, to demand answers about the app on my phone, but instead, I just nodded and turned back to making Zoe's sandwich. Mom, have you seen my USB drive? Zoe bounded into the kitchen, her dark hair still wet from the shower. The blue one with all my coding projects? Check the living room, I said. You were working there last night. Zoe paused, looking between Eric and me. She'd always been perceptive, too smart for her own good sometimes. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she noticed the distance between us, the careful way we avoided touching as Eric moved past me to grab his briefcase. Dad, you promised to help me with my computer science project this weekend, she said suddenly. Remember? The one about digital privacy and security. I nearly dropped the knife I was holding. Eric's shoulders tensed visibly. Sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice tight. Something came up at work. Maybe next weekend? Zoe's face fell, but there was something else in her expression. Suspicion, maybe? Right. Work. Again. Eric kissed her forehead quickly, then headed for the door. Love you both, he called out, but the words sounded hollow, rehearsed. After he left, Zoe turned to me. Mom, what's going on? What do you mean? I busied myself cleaning up breakfast dishes. Dad's been weird lately. And you. She hesitated. You look like you haven't slept. Plus, you're washing that same plate for the 3rd time. I set the plate down, forcing a smile. Just work stress, honey. You know how it gets during final season. Mom, I'm 14, not 4. Zoe crossed her arms. I know something's wrong. I heard you up last night. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Another secure track alert. I snatched it up before Zoe could see, but not before catching a glimpse of the message. Audio recording saved, kitchen, 7:15 a.m. I need to get to school early, I said, grabbing my purse. Teacher's meeting. Will you be okay taking the bus? Zoe's face closed off. Sure, whatever. The drive to school was a blur. In the parking lot, I pulled out my phone and found Sarah's number. We'd been friends since college, and she worked in IT security. If anyone could help me understand what I was dealing with, it would be her. But before I could call, a new text arrived from the unknown number. Careful who you trust, Riley. Sarah might not be the friend you think she is. My blood ran cold. How did they know I was about to call Sarah? Unless... I looked around the parking lot, suddenly feeling exposed. The spyware must have access to my phone's camera too. A knock on my window made me jump. It was just Dennis from the English department, looking concerned. You okay, Riley? Meeting's about to start. Yeah, coming. I grabbed my things, mind racing. I couldn't trust my phone. Couldn't trust my husband. Maybe couldn't even trust my best friend. But worst of all, I was starting to see cracks in my relationship with Zoe, the one person I was trying to protect from all of this. As I walked into school, another text arrived. Smart girl, your daughter. Maybe she should look into that computer science project more carefully. Lots of interesting things to learn about digital privacy these days. It wasn't just a threat anymore. They were dragging my daughter into this. And that was my breaking point. I found Marcus Lee's office tucked between a laundromat and a Chinese takeout place. The private investigator's weathered face matched his worn leather chair as he reviewed the screenshots I'd taken of the spyware app. Secure Track Pro, he said, sliding his reading glasses off. High-end stuff. Not something you'd find on the regular market. Can you trace it? He nodded slowly. Already did. Purchase was made 6 weeks ago through a shell company. But here's where it gets interesting. He turned his computer screen toward me. The buyer used your home address for billing. My stomach lurched. Eric. Thing is, Marcus continued, clicking through several documents. The shell company's been busy. Regular payments to a rental property in Oakwood Heights. Nice place. Way too expensive for a single person unless someone else is helping with the rent. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Bingo. He pulled up a photograph that made my world tilt sideways. Eric, leaving the building with a woman I'd never seen before. She was younger than me, stunning in that effortless way that made me suddenly aware of every wrinkle around my eyes. His hand rested on the small of her back with familiar intimacy. Vanessa Reed, Marcus said quietly. Works at Eric's firm. Junior partner, fast-tracked for promotion. My phone buzzed. Another secure track alert. I ignored it, focusing on the dates beneath the photos. These are from when he said he was working late on the Morrison account. There's more. Marcus hesitated. The spyware. It wasn't his idea. Based on the email trails I found, Vanessa pushed for it. She's been encouraging him to make a clean break. A clean break. My voice sounded strange, distant. From you and Zoe. He slid a folder across his desk. These are copies of everything I found, including. He tapped one document. A consultation with a divorce attorney. Last week. The fluorescent lights suddenly seemed too bright. The smell of Chinese food wafting through the wall made me nauseated. Why the spyware then? If he's planning to leave anyway? Insurance, maybe. Or control. People do strange things when they're living double lives. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. Having fun with Marcus? Wonder what Eric would think about his wife meeting strange men in secret. I showed Marcus the message. His expression darkened. They're watching you right now. Probably through your phone's camera. He grabbed a post-it note and scribbled something. This is a burner phone number. Use it to contact me from now on. And Riley? His eyes met mine. Be careful. People who use surveillance like this. They're not playing games. Walking to my car, another text arrived. Tick-tock, Riley. How long before Zoe finds out her mother's sneaking around too? I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. They were trying to gaslight me, make me doubt myself, make me feel guilty for investigating their betrayal. My phone rang. Eric. Hey, his voice was casual, practiced. Just checking if you can pick up Zoe today? Meeting's running late. Meeting. Right. I wondered if Vanessa was sitting next to him right now, maybe running her fingers through his hair the way I used to. Actually, I heard myself say, I have a meeting too. With the Morrison account. The silence on the other end was deafening. The Morrison account? His voice cracked slightly. Yeah. Funny thing about that account, Eric. They closed their business 6 months ago. I started my car. But hey, enjoy your meeting. Say hi to Vanessa for me. I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding. Through the windshield, I caught my reflection, pale, scared, but something else too. Something harder. My phone lit up with his call again. I declined it, then pulled up the Secure Track app. 2 could play at this surveillance game. If they wanted to watch me, fine. Let them see what happens when you back a teacher into a corner. Time to pay Vanessa Reed a visit. I didn't make it to Vanessa's apartment that day. Instead, I found myself sitting in my classroom during lunch, staring at a stack of unsigned permission slips for tomorrow's field trip. When Zoe appeared in my doorway, "You missed breakfast again," she said, dropping her backpack by my desk. "And Dad didn't come home last night." I forced a smile. He texted, "Late meeting." Stop. Zoe's voice cracked. Just stop lying to me. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as we looked at each other. My daughter's face had lost its childhood softness somewhere in the past year, replaced by sharp angles and knowing eyes that saw too much. "I found something on Dad's laptop," she continued, pulling out her phone. "Remember when he asked me to help organize his work files last weekend?" My stomach dropped. "Zoe." There were emails. Lots of them. To someone named Vanessa. She placed her phone on my desk, screen up. "He's planning to leave us, isn't he?" Before I could respond, a student appeared at the door. "Mrs. Thompson? Principal Warner needs to see you. He says it's urgent." In Warner's office, I found Eric waiting alongside the principal. My husband wore his courtroom smile, the one he used when he was about to destroy someone's credibility on the witness stand. "Riley," Warner began, looking uncomfortable. "Serious allegations have been made about inappropriate contact with a private investigator during school hours. And there are concerns about your emotional stability affecting your teaching performance." I felt the trap closing. Eric had beaten me to the punch, spinning the narrative his way. Of course he had. He was a lawyer. This was what he did for a living. I'm concerned about you, honey, Eric said, his voice dripping with practiced concern. The paranoid accusations, the secret meetings. This isn't like you. Let me help. Help. Like he'd helped by installing spyware on my phone? Like he'd helped by planning our divorce while playing Happy Families? Mr. Thompson suggests taking a leave of absence, Warner added. To sort things out. My phone buzzed. A secure track alert, probably recording this whole conversation. Recording how they were trying to paint me as unstable, paranoid, unfit to teach. Unfit to parent? I have documentation, I said quietly, of everything. Eric's smile flickered. Including the spyware you and Vanessa installed on my phone. The shell company. The apartment in Oakwood Heights. I turned to Warner. And recordings of every conversation I've had in the past 6 weeks, including with students and their parents. I wonder how the school board would feel about that level of privacy violation. Warner's face paled. Privacy violation? I'll email you the evidence, I said, standing. But right now, I need to talk to my daughter. She found your emails, Eric. The ones to Vanessa about leaving us. Eric's mask cracked. Zoe found. Yeah. So while you're trying to destroy my career to cover your tracks, our daughter is sitting in my classroom trying to understand why her father's abandoning her. I walked out, leaving them stammering behind me. In the hallway, my phone buzzed again. Not secure track this time, but a text from Marcus. Got something big. Vanessa's not who she claims to be. Meet ASAP. Back in my classroom, Zoe was still there, working on her laptop. Lines of code scrolled across her screen. What are you doing? I asked. Fighting back, she said, not looking up. Did you know most spyware has exploitable backdoors? Dad really should have researched the product better before buying it. I watched my teenage daughter's fingers fly across the keyboard, her face set in concentrated determination. She looked so much like me at that moment. Not the scared, gaslit version of me from the past few weeks, but the stronger version I used to be. The version I needed to become again. Mom? Zoe finally looked up. I found something else in the app's code. Something bad. Really bad. I don't think this is just about Dad's affair anymore. My phone buzzed one final time. A new message, not from the unknown number this time, but from Vanessa herself. We need to talk. Your husband isn't the only one being blackmailed. Meet me tonight? It's not just spyware, Zoe explained, her laptop screen casting a blue glow across her face in Marcus Lee's dimly lit office. It's part of something bigger. Look at these network connections. Marcus leaned forward, squinting at the code. These IP addresses. They're routing through law firms across the state. Dad's firm isn't the only one involved, I said, remembering Vanessa's text about blackmail. How many, Zoe? 17 so far. All using the same spyware package, all connected to a central server. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. And get this, they're all handling high-profile divorce cases. Marcus whistled low. Surveillance footage, private conversations, location data. It's a goldmine for divorce settlements. My phone buzzed. Vanessa again. They're watching. Don't trust Eric. Meet me at Riverside Park, 30 minutes. It's a trap, Marcus said, reading over my shoulder. Probably. I grabbed my coat anyway. But she's scared. You didn't hear her voice in those recordings Zoe found. Mom, wait. Zoe turned her laptop toward me. Look at this email thread. Vanessa tried to back out 3 weeks ago. The next day, someone sent her this. The attachment showed Vanessa leaving a building I recognized, the women's shelter where I volunteered. She was helping a young woman inside, both looking over their shoulders. Her sister, Marcus said quietly, been hiding from an abusive ex for 6 months. Vanessa's been helping her stay off the grid. Until now. The pieces clicked into place. They're using her sister as leverage. Mom? Zoe's voice shook slightly. There's something else. Remember that college fund Dad started for me last month? My stomach dropped. What about it? The money. It's not mine. It's being funneled through shell companies, the same ones paying for the spyware. Dad's helping them launder money. The room spun slightly. Eric wasn't just having an affair or spying on me. He was part of something much darker, something that could destroy not just our marriage, but his career, his freedom, everything. My phone buzzed again. A video this time, showing Zoe walking home from school yesterday. The message below it was simple: back off or she's next. They're bluffing, Marcus started, but I was already heading for the door. Mom, stop. Zoe called after me. We need a plan. I have one. I turned back, seeing my daughter's worried face, so much older than her 14 years. I'm ending this. Tonight. Not alone you're not. Zoe grabbed her laptop. I can hack their network, shut down the spyware remotely. Give you a window. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than you meeting Vanessa alone? She stood her ground, chin raised defiantly. They're already threatening me. At least let me fight back. Marcus cleared his throat. Kid's right. You need backup. I've got a friend in the FBI's cybercrime division. One call. No. I thought of Vanessa's sister, of all the other people being blackmailed. Not yet. If we spook them, people could get hurt. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with first. My phone buzzed one final time. A photo of Eric entering a building I didn't recognize, followed by TikTok. Your husband's about to make a deal that can't be undone. Choose wisely. I looked at my daughter, this brilliant, brave girl who refused to be a victim. At Marcus, who'd become more than just an investigator. My allies in this mess. Okay, I said finally. Here's what we're going to do. Zoe, you and Marcus work on accessing their network. But you stay here where it's safe. I'll meet Vanessa, find out what she knows. And then? Marcus asked. I thought of all the lies, the manipulation, the threats against my daughter. And then we burn it all down. Every last bit of it. As I left the office, I heard Zoe's fingers already flying across her keyboard, and I smiled grimly. They thought they could threaten a mother's child? They were about to learn exactly how dangerous that could be. Riverside Park was deserted when I arrived, except for Vanessa sitting alone on a bench near the water. She looked different from the photos Marcus had shown me, smaller somehow, more fragile. They're watching, she said without looking at me. But Zoe's program worked. We have about 10 minutes before the spyware comes back online. I sat beside her, keeping my distance. Tell me about my husband's deal. It's not just Eric. Her hands trembled as she pulled out a USB drive. The firm's been running this scheme for years. They install spyware on their own clients' devices, gather dirt on both parties in divorces, then use it to manipulate settlements. The money laundering is just a bonus. My phone buzzed. A text from Zoe. Mom, something's wrong. Dad's not at the office. He's. The message cut off as a familiar voice spoke behind us. I really wished you'd stayed out of this, Riley. Eric stepped out of the shadows, and he wasn't alone. 2 men in suits flanked him, their expressions cold and professional. The thing is, Eric continued, moving closer, you were never supposed to find the spyware. That was Vanessa's mistake. He shot her a disappointed look. She got sloppy. Like you got sloppy with the college fund? I stood, positioning myself between him and Vanessa. Money laundering through our daughter's account? That's low, even for you. It's called protecting our future. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Everything I did was for us. The firm's offering me partner, Riley. Real power. All I had to do was prove my loyalty. By spying on your own family? By showing I understand how the game is played. He gestured to the men beside him. Now we can handle this quietly. The firm's prepared to be generous. A clean divorce, full custody of Zoe, a comfortable settlement. All you have to do is walk away. My phone vibrated again. A single message from Marcus, FBI en route. Stall him. And if I don't walk away? Eric's face hardened. Then things get complicated. For everyone. He pulled out his phone, showing me a live feed of the women's shelter, including Vanessa's sister, and maybe even that bright future Zoe has in computer science. Would be a shame if she got caught hacking corporate servers. You'd threaten your own daughter? The words tasted like ash. I'm protecting her, teaching her how the world really works. He stepped closer, voice softening. Come on, Riley. Take the deal. We can all walk away from this. Behind me, Vanessa made a small, broken sound. I thought of her sister, of all the other families torn apart by this scheme. Of Zoe, watching her father reveal his true nature. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. This ends tonight. I pulled out my own phone, turning it toward him. On the screen, a live stream played, Eric's entire confession, broadcasting directly to Marcus's FBI contact and backed up to secure servers. Eric's face went white. You didn't come alone? I finished. Neither did you. Flashlights suddenly illuminated the park as FBI agents emerged from the darkness. Eric's professional friends disappeared like smoke, leaving him standing alone as agents converged. Riley, please, he begged, all pretense gone. Everything I did was for us. For Zoe. No. I watched as agents cuffed him. Everything you did was for yourself. My phone buzzed one final time. An unknown number. This isn't over. The firm protects its own. I looked at Eric being led away, at Vanessa crying with relief as agents assured her about her sister's safety. At the life I'd built crumbling around me. They were right. It wasn't over. The firm would retaliate. My career might be finished. Our savings were probably gone. And somewhere in Marcus's office, my teenage daughter had just watched her father choose power over family. But standing there in the dark, watching Eric's world collapse, I realized something important. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to see what's worth saving from the ashes. My phone buzzed again. Zoe, Mom, you okay? No, I wasn't okay. But for the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what I was fighting for. The holding cell at the federal building wasn't what I expected. Eric sat there in his expensive suit, somehow looking both powerful and pathetic under the fluorescent lights. 2 FBI agents stood outside, but they'd given us privacy for this conversation. You could have taken the deal, he said quietly. We could have kept our family. Our family? I placed the USB drive Vanessa had given me on the table between us. Let's talk about family, Eric. Let's talk about the 23 other families your firm destroyed this year alone. His jaw tightened. You don't understand how things work in my world. I understand perfectly. I slid printouts across the table, bank statements, emails, surveillance logs. You chose power over people, money over morality. And now you're choosing your firm over your daughter. Leave Zoe out of this. You brought her into this when you used her college fund to launder money. My voice stayed steady, even as my hands shook. When you threatened her future to protect your scheme. A knock at the door made us both jump. Zoe stood there, Marcus right behind her. I hadn't expected her to come, had tried to protect her from this moment. But the determined look in her eyes reminded me so much of myself. I want to talk to him, she said. Eric's face crumpled. Sweetheart. Don't. Zoe sat beside me, her laptop open. I found something in the spyware code. Something Mom doesn't know about yet. My heart stopped. Eric's face went pale. The program wasn't just recording conversations, Zoe continued, her voice trembling slightly. It was fabricating them. Creating fake evidence to use against your client's spouses. And Mom? They were building a case against you too. She turned the laptop toward us. Audio files filled the screen. Doctored conversations, manipulated photos, a complete fabricated history of inappropriate behavior with students. Insurance, Eric whispered. In case you ever discovered. In case I ever threaten your precious firm? The rage I'd been containing finally boiled over. You were going to destroy my career, take Zoe away from me? The firm required leverage on everyone involved. Even me. He reached for Zoe's hand, but she pulled away. I never wanted to use it. But you would have, Zoe said. Just like you used Vanessa's sister against her. Just like you're using everyone. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window, I saw Vanessa being led in by more agents, her face tear-streaked but determined. Behind her came a parade of suited men, senior partners from the firm, their facades of power crumbling as federal agents escorted them in. They're all turning on each other, Marcus said from the doorway. The whole house of cards is coming down. Eric stood abruptly, desperation in his eyes. Riley, please. I can still fix this. The firm has connections, resources. Stop. Zoe's voice cut through his pleading. Just stop lying. Mom found the spyware, but I found the truth. And I'm the one who cracked their encryption. Me. Your daughter. The one you were ready to sacrifice. She stood, gathering her laptop. I used to think you were the smartest person I knew. Now I realize you're just another bully who thought he could control everyone through their secrets. She turned to me. Can we go home now, Mom? Eric reached for her again. Zoe, everything I did was for yourself, she finished. Mom protected me. You just protected your power. As we turned to leave, Eric called out one last time. What happens now? I looked at my daughter, this amazing person who'd grown stronger through all this pain. At Marcus, who'd become a true friend. Even at Vanessa through the window, who'd finally chosen truth over fear. Now, I met Eric's eyes one last time. Now we rebuild. Without you. Walking out, Zoe slipped her hand into mine. Behind us, Eric's world continued to unravel, but ahead of us stretched something new, a future built on truth instead of secrets, strength instead of power, love instead of control. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from the school board, position secure. Evidence of firm's manipulation clear. When can you return to teaching? I smiled, squeezing Zoe's hand. We had a lot of healing ahead, but for the first time in months, the path forward was clear. 6 months later, I stood in our new apartment, watching Zoe set up her computer station in what used to be our dining room. The space was smaller than our old house, but somehow it felt more like home. Mom, Zoe called out, excitement in her voice. The cybersecurity program accepted me for their summer workshop. I moved to look at her acceptance email, remembering how different things had been half a year ago. The trial was still ongoing, but Eric had pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testimony against the firm. The scandal had rocked the legal community, exposing similar schemes at law firms across the state. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Coffee tomorrow? Sarah's coming too. We need your input on the shelter's new security system. That had been unexpected, how Vanessa had transformed from perceived enemy to ally. After everything settled, she'd thrown herself into helping other women escape controlling relationships, using her insider knowledge of surveillance tactics to strengthen the shelter's protection protocols. Think fast. Zoe tossed me a small package. Inside was a USB drive shaped like a key. It's clean, she added with a grin. I checked. We could joke about it now, but those weeks of discovering the spyware had changed us both. Zoe had channeled her pain into purpose, becoming the youngest intern at Marcus's new cybersecurity consulting firm. And I, Professor Thompson? A student's voice called from my laptop. Right. Office hours. Even through video chat, teaching felt different now. Better somehow. More real. Just a minute, I called back, then turned to Zoe. Dinner at 7? Sarah's bringing that pasta you like. Can't. Meeting Marcus and his FBI friend about the workshop curriculum. She paused, then added softly, Dad's sentencing is next week. The air thickened slightly. We'd both received letters from Eric, apologies, explanations, promises to do better. They sat unopened in my desk drawer. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. You thought you won, but power always protects its own. I showed it to Zoe, who was already typing. Traced it. Just another angry ex-partner from the firm. Want me to forward it to Marcus? No. I deleted the message. Some people never learn that real power isn't about control. The doorbell rang. Sarah, early for our prep session. We were presenting at next month's educational conference about digital privacy in schools. Turns out my experience had value beyond just survival. Coming. I called out, but Zoe was already opening the door. She and Sarah had grown close, bonding over coding and their shared love of terrible science fiction movies. Hey, warrior women, Sarah said, dropping bags of takeout on the counter. Ready to change the world? I looked around our new home, at Zoe's workspace where she helped others protect their privacy, at the conference materials spread across my desk. at the friendship that had grown between Sarah and Vanessa as they worked to strengthen the shelter's security. "You know what's funny?" I said, grabbing plates. "When this all started, I thought it was about revenge. About making Eric pay for betraying us. But it wasn't," Zoe finished, setting up her laptop. "It was about choosing who we wanted to be after the betrayal." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "When did you get so wise, kid?" "When my mom showed me that strength isn't about having power over others." Zoe smiled at me. "It's about helping others find their power." My phone buzzed one last time. "Marcus, got that teaching position approved. You start the cybersecurity awareness program next semester." Zoe's curriculum suggestions were brilliant. I looked at my daughter, this amazing person who'd grown not despite our challenges, but because of how we'd faced them together. At Sarah, who'd become more than just a friend. At the life we'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Some scars never fully heal, but they remind us of our strength. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies, it's about building something better from the ruins they left behind. "All right," I said, opening the takeout. "Let's change the world."